Inside a peaceful town, a boy is playing with his friend, who is a wizard, and his friend is a monster that eats wizards. The boy hits his friend on the forehead, who demands not to be hit for real, but the boy notes that monsters are supposed to lose to wizards, so it's only natural that he does. The friend wants to be a wizard too if that is the case, and an old man who is watching them laughs, as they sure are energetic in the morning. This is Grandpa Rebus, and the boy asks what he needs to do in order to become a wizard, as he wants to defeat monsters too. Rebus notes that he can't become one just because he wants to. Wizards are the apex of all humanity, ones who rule over humans from the highest hierarchies possible. They are nobles, and knights who inherited the ability to use mysterious powers from their ancestors. So, unfortunately, they cannot become wizards. One of the younger men wonders how he can say something like that to children who don't know any better, but also asks if what they are saying is true. Rebus asks what he means, and the young man notes that he heard a monster appeared. Rebus explains that it is true. They say Rop came across it at the entrance of the town last night. They said its entire body was covered in a pitch-black shadow. It was a leopard, as big as a house, or that's according to Rop. But they needn't worry. The village chief went to the city to request a wizard already. He will definitely bring that wizard back, and the monster will be subdued before it can do any damage. The mother of one of the children thinks it's a relief, and tells her children not to go into the forest for the time, as it's too dangerous for them. Rebus picks up the stick, and notes that they should all be careful for the moment. Without a wizard, killing a monster is an impossible feat for mere humans like them. The young man wonders if all the villagers know, and Rebus thinks so, but the young man doesn't know about that. What about the shepherd on Hisaril Hill, Turan? He is currently lying on one of his sheep, bored to death as the sheep circle him. Every day, he sees the same scenery, does the same things, without anything interesting happening. At this rate, he is really going to forget how to talk. He wishes he had someone to speak with all day. Suddenly Rebus appears, calling him a pathetic brat. The sun has not even started to set in the sky, and he dares to slack off. Turan tells him that he's blocking his sunlight, so he should move, causing Rebus to say that he has no manners. Is he truly still holding on to that incident from back then? Turan doesn't know what he means, but then remembers. He means when his mother died, and instead of helping, he tried to quietly turn the sheep into his shared property? If that is what he means, then indeed he's not generous enough to share the only thing his mother left him after all. They are also not close enough to be asking how they are doing to each other. So if he came here, he should say what he wants and get lost. Rebus is about to scream at him, but Turan looks at him, demanding he spit it out already. Rebus explains that a monster has appeared, causing Turan to get up. They say it's a leopard the size of a house. Rop found it. He's on his way back after informing all of the villagers. Turan notes that it's a serious problem as he pets the sheep, and Rebus sees that he is not scared, even though he is the likeliest one to suffer from this situation. He doesn't know what kind of guts he has, or if he's just too stupid to understand. Anyway, the village chief already went to the city to request a wizard, so he should be careful. That's why he came, because he was worried about him. Turan notes that he's not very honest for an old man. Why can't he just say that he came because he was actually worried for the sheep? Rebus is about to scream again, but Turan stops him and notes that if he is done talking, he should be on his way already, as his breath stinks so bad his nose feels like it's about to fall off. Rebus reluctantly goes away as he grumbles to himself, and Turan turns to his sheep. Monsters are beasts that wield mysterious power and magic. If humans have wizards, then the beasts have monsters. Turan is surprised that a wizard is coming to a backwater village because of one monster, although he finally is going to see a wizard in person. However, if it's a rural village chief calling them, there's a good chance that they won't be anything special, even if they are a wizard. Even so, he wants to see one. He always wondered how strong one is. Suddenly his nose picks up a metallic scent, causing him to be on guard. That smell is the smell of blood. He decides to follow it as the sun goes down, and he walks throughout the forest, which is getting dark at this point, and using his nose, eventually finds where that smell was coming from. It's Rebus. He was completely split in half. He told him to be careful, but here he is, going first. Turan remains calm, as this is not a wound an ordinary wild animal would make. It has to be the work of a monster, isn't it? Suddenly he hears a loud thud behind him, as the leopard-like beast appears, growling at Turan as it emanates a deathly thick miasma around it. The child who was playing before asks how strong a monster is. Is it true that not even adults can beat one? His father tells him that they are extremely strong. If ordinary adults like him rush it, they won't even be able to find his bones by the end. The boy understands, but what will happen to their village now? The father tells him not to worry as he puts some food in front of him. The village chief will bring a wizard after all, and the wizard will subjugate that monster. The child guesses that the wizard won't lose, as the wizard will punish the monster, won't he? The father agrees. They are great beings born with the power of magic. They will kill the monster with a single word. They are that strong. Turan does not flinch as the beast growls at him. Instead, he opens his mouth and only says one word, "Die." The monster immediately backs away, sensing an aura of suppression around the man. Turan guessed it wouldn't work, and the monster charges in again, this time pouncing on him. Turan simply says, "Stop," and the beast dashes away again, going behind him. He knew that killing it wouldn't work, but it can't be stopped either. Sensing the danger it's in, the monster rushes in with a mighty claw, which crashes on the ground where Turan once stood, but he is long gone from there. If he cannot kill this beast with words, then he will do what a shepherd does. He pulls out a slingshot, and as the monster charges in again, he takes a rock, hardening it inside of his slingshot, before making his eyes glow as he commands it to become faster, and to pierce as he throws it. The rock breaks the sound barrier as it flies toward the monster, who has milliseconds to dodge, as the blast would have gone through him, but it only destroyed his ear. Knowing this is an opportunity he will not get again, the beast charges in, ready to rip its opponent apart, but Turan just smiles, as he wasn't actually aiming for the beast's body, but for its head. The rock comes flying down, roughly landing on the beast, for ending up on the ground nearby. With that, the monster is defeated, Turan noting that this is his first time using it against one. Maybe he should toss it into a valley or something, but he's kind of annoyed to be doing this kind of work for free. Naturally, Turan is a wizard. He realized he had special abilities 8 years ago. When he was 10, he showed his mother too. He thought it was something fun, something he could play with, and the memories of that day are still clear in his mind, because it was the first and last time his mother got mad at him. After that though, she knelt to him, as she wanted to have a chat. He wanted to live a long life with her for a long time, right? If so, she wanted him to promise that he won't use this power from now on, that he will never use it in front of other people, especially. Turan asked why, and his mother asked if he remembered the story about the noble and the knight. Turan did. They call the people who wield this special power wizards, whether they are nobles or knights, but nobles and knights are inherently different. Nobles are descendants of the divine people, the Freyans, who descended to save the old humans, and knights are the descendants of those nobles whose blood has been mixed with humans. His mother picked up her herding staff. She was glad he remembered. That is why they differentiate between nobles and knights, even among wizards. She will tell him why he can't use his powers, because he inherited them from his father, who was a knight. There are many evil nobles outside of this town, and the nobles treat most knights as their slaves. That's why she wanted him to remember. Nobody can know that he is a wizard. 8 years have passed since then. He continued to uphold the promise he made to his mother, and he plans not to break it either. He has no desire to reel himself as a wizard, or descend this mountain, as there is nothing for him there in the first place. A few hours pass, and someone bangs on his door roughly. When Turan opens it, he is met with the faces of the young men of the village, who seem rather angry. After a bit of explanation, Turan gets the gist of it. They are saying that he killed Robus. Is that it? A more rowdy man grabs his collar and asks how shameful he can be. He hurt that old man, and then threw him out to be eaten by the beasts. He can't deny it. Turan remains silent for a bit, looking around. He can see why they would want to frame him. The oldest man in the village died a sad death all alone, instead of the young men who were too scared to even approach the forest. He can see why they think this is the best way. That's the easiest way to shift the blame from themselves to him. The burly man tries to hit him, but Turan simply gets out of his way and smashes his head into his nose. Magic is a rather convenient tool to have. If he strongly wishes for something, it happens at the cost of some mana. As the other men charge at him, he makes one of them trip silently. He doesn't need to start an entire fire after all. He only needs to use a little bit, so that it's not obvious. He grabs the hand of the one who charged at him and smashes his club into his own face. He will dominate them like this, again and again, to the point that they will not die. Just like that, for 8 years, he has hidden the fact that he is a wizard pretty well. He dusts himself off, noting that they should have used that strength for Robus's burial. He asks the women who came with them if they are here to fight, but they deny such a thing. They just came to see him. Turan says nothing, and tells them to take these idiots with them before going down, as he doesn't want them on his grass. As he turns back into his home, Turan thinks that it's going to be chaos in their town again. They're going to use this as an excuse to rip him off when he goes to trade. Well, whatever. He can just beat them up until he gets a better deal. As he thinks so to himself, he hears another more gentle knock on the door. He opens it, expecting it to be some village girl or another group, but he is met with the face of an older individual who is not poorly dressed. He asked who he is, and the man apologized. He thought he could ask for a favor in his travels, but he must have caught him in a bad moment. Turan is surprised to see a traveler here, and apologizes for his outburst. It's just that a few uninvited guests came to see him a few moments ago. His mother taught him manners, But was that proper enough? He never talked nicely to anyone in that town, so this is pretty awkward. Anyway, it's strange that this traveler has a sword, especially in this town. Before Turan can point him to an inn, the man's stomach growls, so he invites him inside. Turan pulls out everything he has to feed the man. It's not much, but the man thinks that this is a feast. He surprised him though. He's never met someone outside of town. Turan confirms that he was born and raised on this hill, and has lived as a shepherd his entire life. It is also rare for this town to get any sort of travel. The man looks at him as he drinks and finds his posture interesting. For someone who grew up as a shepherd, he is quite well versed in manners. His parents must have taught him well. Turan explains that his mother taught him all he knows, but she died a few years ago due to an illness. The man makes a cross gesture, as he notes that she raised a proud son like him, so he is sure that she is residing in the heavens. He also thanks him again for the generous meal. Turan notes that he's just doing what he was taught, but also wonders what brings him all the way here, to this town. The man explains that he was asked a favor. They were looking for someone to take care of a monster puma, and well, he is a wizard. Turan is surprised and guesses he's the one the village elder talked about. The man confirms as such and wants to ask a few questions, if he doesn't mind. He sensed a monster in the area, but he didn't see one. What is weirder is that he knows about the village elder and the monster, yet he seems calm and isn't running away. If the monster went for a human, it would definitely be him, so why isn't he scared? He seems rather brave for a shepherd who never left his little home. He should be honest now. Who really is he? In the past, Turan asked why he couldn't let anyone know why he was a wizard, and his mother explained that it was because of bad nobles. They are shepherds, just like them, and the knights are like the dogs that herd the sheep. They might treat him with love, like a family would, but they can sell him off, or even sacrifice him. She did not wish for that kind of life for him, and if he wanted to keep living with her, then he should remember this. Nobody can know that he is a wizard, especially other wizards. If they find out, he will be separated from her and turned into a dog. To avoid all of this, he may even have to kill a few people. Turan feels a little sad, as he didn't expect to ever have to do this. The wizard notes that he cannot answer then, but suddenly, his expression softens into a smile, as he says that if he makes faces like that, it makes his joke pretty awkward. Turan sweats a little, as what does he mean by joke? He apologizes, as he really doesn't have a good sense of humor. The mage notes that it's his fault. He probably flustered him with that attempt at comedy. Turan smiles, noting that it's his first time hearing a wizard joke, so he was caught off guard. The wizard is still pleased, as his reaction was quite entertaining, but now that he thinks about it, they haven't introduced themselves properly. He extends a hand as he introduces himself as Kiorn, a wanderer. Turan shakes his hand and apologizes for not introducing himself first. He is Turan, a shepherd. They chat into the night, with Turan explaining that he will turn 18 this year. Kiorn notes that he will be 75 this year, surprising Turan, as he certainly doesn't seem that old. Kiorn explains that wizards age more slowly than ordinary people, and live longer. Turan asks how he ended up becoming a wanderer with curiosity in his eyes, and Kiorn explains that after serving the Arabian family for 60 years, he left. In his later years, he wanted to roam from place to place without settling down. Turan thinks that's rather romantic, and they continue talking. Sharing a harmless conversation like this with a good person to be around, he never realized how enjoyable it could be. Night turns to dawn. Kiorn is surprised to see that it's already so late. Turan is surprised too. He didn't even notice the sun coming up. Kiorn gets up, noting that he should go. Before that though, he puts a coin on the table, Arabian silver. It's the purest among silver coins, so it should more than cover the cost of the meal. Turan accepts it gratefully and hopes his hunt goes smoothly. Kiorn tells him not to act, as they will never see each other again. As he dresses, he might come by a few more times to mooch off of him after all. A few days later, Turan is in the valley with his sheep, as per usual, but he tells them to gather, and they begin doing so. He thinks about Kiorn, as that was his first time meeting another wizard. More than that though, how long has it been since he's had a conversation that felt so comfortable? The ease and humor that naturally seeped into his way of speaking, more than any adult he has ever met. That man is a good person. He always thought knights were just emotionless hounds, used by arrogant nobles. He sighs, putting that thought aside, as he wonders how to tell him that there are no monsters on Hisaril Hill. Kiorn walks around, finding this landscape rather strange. There are traces of battle all around, but he cannot feel the presence of a monster. As he looks at the stone Turan used to kill it, which is lodged in a tree, he wonders if it was already hunted. But if so, who did it? Did the village chief leave it to another wizard besides him? Either way, he's fine with it. If someone killed the monster and made things safe, that is all that matters. Suddenly though, his heart sinks with a deep pressure. and as he turns around he sees the shriveled corpse of that puma monster standing at attention, ready to strike him down. This is a monster wraith. As he wonders who would do something like this, the wraith strikes, forcing him to dodge. Kjorn thinks that if one doesn't absorb or disperse the mana from a dead monster's corpse, the monster turns into a wraith like this. A wizard who hunts monsters couldn't have possibly not known that. He dashes away again as the beast tries to swallow him, thinking that the one who killed it was definitely a wizard. But then why did they leave it to become a wraith? Did they not know it becomes a wraith if they don't absorb the mana? However, a novice knight who doesn't even know something like that couldn't have killed this thing in the first place. He charges up a ball of magic in his hand, wondering if this was their intention. Either way, he has to destroy it. He pulls the ball of energy with his right hand as he aims with his left, unleashing a bolt of magic right into the beast, but it nullifies his magic. This means that the monster's mana is vastly stronger than his. Suddenly, the beast disappears right in front of his eyes. It's probably trying to counter magic with magic. He feels around for it, but the amalgamation appears right out of his shadow, taking the shape of a ghastly worm. The wraith strikes, and Kjorn does manage to dodge, but he thinks that this isn't a level a mere knight can contend with. At the very least, a low-ranking noble would have at least a chance. He dashes away, not expecting to run into a monster wraith of this power in some remote village. Life really is strange sometimes. Whatever the case, it seems that will be his end. This thing will probably take his life. As he heaves though, he grits his teeth, as he is not just going to die obediently. Even if he does, he will take this thing with him. He concentrates all of his mana into his hand, as if he stabs it directly the moment it lunges at him, he will have a chance. The wraith goes in to strike, and Kjorn reacts too, dashing in with the last memento of his mana left in his hand. Suddenly though, a blue strike appears from the dark forest and smashes into the wraith, killing it instantly as its head is blown off. Turan asks if he's alright, and Kjorn notes that his shepherd jokes aren't that funny either. Kjorn expected him to be a wizard after all, but why didn't he tell him? Seeing as Turan is not answering, he changes the question. Why did he help him just now? He could have just walked away and continued to live his life in peace. Turan remembers that Kjorn came back one day with a wolf, and he asked why he was going this far. He didn't know what the village chief promised him, but with his skills, he could probably earn a lot more money at a more comfortable pace. Kjorn laughed, and noted that they are just pitiful people. Turan asked in what way, so he explained that living out here on the frontier, trembling in fear, without the most basic protection, that makes them pitiful. Turan noted that this wasn't his fault, so Kjorn explained that a wizard, by nature, is someone who inherited the power of a god. If so, then they should live with pride in protecting the powerless. Well, not every wizard thinks like he does. Everyone has their own thoughts, their own way of living this life. Turan smiles, and notes that this is just his way of living. Suddenly though, the wraith comes back to life and tries to smash Kjorn, making them both dodge. He tells Turan to listen carefully. This is not at a level they can handle. This is a monster one cannot fight, so he should go tell the village chief immediately, and help them evacuate, as he will hold this thing here for as long as he can. Facing the void of the wraith though, Kjorn really doesn't know how long he will last, but Turan tells him it's okay. If that attack landed just now, it will be fine. Kjorn wonders if he's saying that this attack wasn't his full strength. A young knight hiding in the mountains can hunt a wraith that even nobles have a hard time dealing this? At that time, the veteran knight thought this. What he was seeing right now isn't just some small connection he happened to make in a rural village. This scene before his eyes, filled with so much power, could be the beginning of a wizard who will turn the entire world on its head. Turan is fine with this, as he was wondering about his limits. Kjorn, however, doesn't want to let him do it. No matter how talented he may be, that thing is an extremely tough opponent. They have to join forces. Just as he says that, the beast lunges at him, almost killing him right there, before Turan sends it flying with another strike. Kjorn realizes that right now, he would only get in Turan's way. He couldn't even react to this attack. At the moment, he is no help. What he must do right now is make sure that the talent of this young man blooms. As Turan strikes again, he seems rather annoyed, as this is clearly not working. Kjorn explains that he cannot kill a wraith with physical attacks. As Turan dodges again, he asks how he has to kill it then, so Kjorn tells him to use fire or lightning. Turan summons a blob of fire onto the beast, but it's not working. Kjorn thinks that he meant to apply power to another living being. Establishing proper casualty is a basic requirement. Does he really not even know the most basic common sense of a wizard? Suddenly, he connects the dots, as perhaps he was the one who killed the monster and left it alone to become a wraith. This means that Turan has never absorbed mana in his life, and he is already that strong. He tells him not to light a fire, but shoot it. After dodging again, Turan begins to form a ball of fire in his hand. To a wizard, making a fire shouldn't be that difficult of a thing, but controlling the fire requires another set of training. However, Turan can just do it immediately. He smashes the ball of fire right into the beast's face, making the wraith scream out and wail on the ground as the fire consumes it. Kiorn tells him to not lose focus and to keep pouring mana into it so the fire doesn't go out. He should aim to burn every single speck of that thing. Turan doesn't react. Instead, he remains focused as the wraith slowly fades into ash, lifeless. Kiorn can't believe it. They won against an absurdly strong wraith, which not even a noble could have defeated on their own, but he took it down. Turan turns to him and asks if it's really over now, and Kiorn explains that if he doesn't want to meet another wraith, he needs to absorb the mana first. Turan asks how he does that, and Kiorn guides him. He should imagine himself draining something into himself, the very soul of the monster. Turan closes his eyes, and as his palm hovers over the corpse, something green begins to be absorbed by him. He slowly opens his eyes and feels his entire body in a second, forming a sentiment he's never felt before. Kiorn notes that he will feel some sort of pleasure. He can't believe it even after seeing it with his eyes though. This really is his first time absorbing mana. After one's first awakening, mana grows slowly with age. The best way to grow it is to kill monsters or wizards and absorb their mana. But this was Turan's first time absorbing mana, yet he's already able to handle magic at such a level, meaning his innate potential is on a different plane of existence. He calls out Turan, apologizing for being rude to him, and asks which house he belongs to. Turan just kind of stares at him and notes that he should get treated first, as he's kind of bleeding everywhere on the ground. After Turan bandages his hand, Kiorn looks at it and apologizes once again for his rudeness. For him to make someone as esteemed as himself do something like this, he can only apologize. Turan sighs. He's told him many times already that he is not someone esteemed. He's just some shepherd who doesn't even know whose father is, so he would like him to stop it. Kiorn understands. He doesn't need to glare at him like that. Kiorn still wonders why a powerful mage like him would be a shepherd. He does not mean it in a belittling sense, but it really does not suit him. Turan explains that it was the request of his mother. She told him to do this right up until the moment she died. Below the mountain, there are nobles. If it's revealed that he is a wizard, he will only be used by them and then discarded. Kiorn notes that she was a wise woman, surprising Turan, as he thought he would say that she was rather overprotective. Kiorn explains that she was not entirely wrong. Wizards have great power, and that great power is what brings out conflict. Just 20-some years ago, there was a major war between great noble houses. It was the war between House Arabian, which he served, and the great house of Zahar. Many people lost their lives in that war. Out of roughly 3,000 Arabian knights at the time, more than 900 died, nearly a third. Sadly, everyone close to him was in that third. His friend Denver, who always said he would open a laundry shop once the war ended. His teacher Hartman, who scolded him, saying he still had much to learn. Even his beloved wife and son, they were all massacred, and he was the only one who survived. That is why his mother was kind of right. A knight's life can vanish more easily and more meaninglessly than even a commoner, but the one thing she was wrong about was his aptitude. Turan asks what he means, and Kiorn notes it's kind of embarrassing to say this while in such a state, but he is a knight with fairly good skill, yet he easily destroyed the monster wraith that he couldn't even let a scratch on. His potential isn't merely that of a knight. At minimum, he's at the level of a noble. Among them, he is at least upper tier. Turan takes all of this in, noting that his mother said that his father was a knight. Was that a lie, perhaps? Kiorn explains that on rare occasions, a child worse than a knight is born among nobles, or a noble-class child is born out of a knight. In that sense, he thinks it would be better for him to leave this hill and go out into the big, wide world. Turan asks why. So Kiorn tells him that humans need more nobles and knights. Humans are not the complete masters of this world after all. Long ago, the other races that were pushed out by the gods are still watching for a chance to rise again, and in the middle of that, the nobles only wage war amongst each other. That is why this is an age that desperately needs capable people like him. More than anything, he isn't satisfied living like this, isn't he? Turan thinks on it, and asks what he could gain below the mountain, but Kiorn notes it's depending on what he wants. Wealth, fame, power, everything is possible if he gets the one piece. Sorry, if he goes outside, as this is a rather dull life that he is living. He should think about it. He could wander like him and destroy monsters that threaten people, or become an explorer that ventures into the unknown. Maybe he will even be adopted into a house and walk the path of power. Turan meets him outside, saying that he might be right. Tea would be far more interesting than herding sheep here. For the first time, he is seriously curious about the outside world. Kiorn is worried that he might be planting too many expectations into him. so he will support him in every way possible. He also wonders what his bloodline ability is. He should have asked first. Turan doesn't know what that is, and Kjorn apologizes. He keeps forgetting he doesn't know much about magic. A bloodline ability is a trait nobles inherit from their ancestors, the Freyans. Whether or not he has a bloodline ability is also what separates nobles from knights. Was there perhaps any spell that felt very easy and simple when he used magic? Or some outstanding ability he has that doesn't need magic? Turan looks at his fist, noting that he's not just strong, right? Kjorn explains that having mana makes a wizard's physician capabilities stronger. Turan notes that he has a good nose, and he's pretty good at throwing stones, as he already saw. Kjorn notes that having a sense of smell that is very good could be a bloodline ability. So could throwing weapons, as it's one of House Arabian's traits, but it's a fairly common one. Turan tells him more and more, but after he finishes, he sees Kjorn act somber out of nowhere. This is because he thinks he knows which house his abilities are closest to. It's a great house, known as Pursuers and Hunters. It's House Zahar, the one that fought a war with House Arabian. Turan's eyes widen with remorse as he realizes what this means. Remorse for something he never did. Is he really telling him that he's from the bloodline as this man's enemies? He doesn't even know what to say to him. Should he apologize? But these are actions of relatives he's never met, who are strangers to him. Kjorn sees the worry in his face and pats his shoulder, telling him not to look so down, as he didn't participate in that war himself. Turan still feels bad, but Kjorn tells him this is an adult situation. If they try to wash blood with blood, the fighting will never cease. Turan wonders if he has any regrets now about telling him to go down that hill. Kjorn notes that if he goes down the mountain and pursues power, he will inevitably end up joining the Zahar family. He has an amazing ability after all, but he trusts his character. Turan doesn't know exactly what that means, so Kjorn explains that he's talking about the goodness within him. He saved him, deciding to reveal an identity he'd hidden his entire life. Rather, if someone like him joined the Zahar family and rose into a high position, perhaps it could prevent such a terrible thing from happening ever again. Either way, there's no need to think too much about it. After all, it's not like he's decided right now whether to join the family or not. Turan notes that his mind is clear now, though he wants to try and go down the mountain. Kjorn says he thought well, but Turan will only do so once his injury is healed. Kjorn finds him too kind. He's merely a bit scratched, but indeed he really is a good person. Inside, Kjorn explains that to use magic, one absolutely needs mana, which is why mana is commonly called the key to omnipotence. It's not a truly omnipotent power, as the rather grandiose name suggests, but to use magic, he needs mana to match it. Turan asks if what the standard is for mana that matches magic. Kjorn is going to explain right now that the difficulty of magic is largely determined by 3 factors. First is bloodline, second is affinity, and third is causality. The first one, bloodline, is determined by the bloodline he was born with. This applies to most nobles who are not knights. For example, it would be difficult for him to heal his wounds with magic, but for the Revista bloodline in the south, it's something they can do without even training. That is a power that comes from their bloodline. Turan asks about affinity, and Kjorn explains that he can also think of it as familiarity. It's the concept that a mage can more easily perform things that they prefer to, or are used to. Turan guesses it's like how he can make a fireball, if he thinks of it as a throwing rock, and Kjorn confirms as such. Probably, if he had simply made flames, he wouldn't have been able to achieve that firepower. Last one, which is the most important, is causality, which even he doesn't fully understand. What would happen if he tried to kill him directly, using mana? Turan guesses some light would shine from his head, but that would be it. As Kjorn does the same thing to a cup, he explains that this is exactly the phenomenon that occurs from a lack of causality, when there's no appropriate cause for a desired outcome, and when what needs to be achieved is excessively difficult. That's when this applies. Turan can understand it a little bit. If he wanted to kill him, rather than spending mana wishing for death, he would need to provide a cause of death, like creating and shooting flame, because creating and shooting fire is more natural than lighting one. Kjorn happily confirms as such. Honestly, he could become a scholar instead of a mage. Turan is confused. If he can control ordinary animals as he wishes, why is it that magical beasts need something like that? With this, Kjorn continues to explain everything he knows to him, and Turan realizes that magic is not easy. Kjorn agrees. An excellent mage known not just for how to use mana, but the principles and situations behind it as well. Turan wonders though, does the Zahar bloodline also have special magic? Kjorn heard they are skilled in stealth and tracking, so he should try it at least once. Turan closes his eyes, thinking that he does not want to be seen by others, and he wishes neither sound nor smell could be detected. Sure enough, his physical form becomes clear to the point that Kjorn cannot see him anymore. He succeeded, but this seems to make some dark memories pop up in his mind. Turan appears once again, and Kiorn notes that it's been a while since he's seen it, but it's still a terrifying ability. During the war, the Arabian Knights feared that ability the most. Turan notes it feels like kind of a cheat, but even so, Kiorn advises him to keep in mind that it doesn't make him invincible. Now then, he will teach him a few magic training methods. Turan wonders if he's not teaching too much to an enemy family's mage, but Kiorn explains that he saved his life and treated him too, and as he told him, he trusts his character. Later that day, Turan goes to the village chief, telling him that he is selling the sheep and leaving, but he wonders who is going to do the herding now, and how can he decide something like that without even consulting them? Turan explains that they should figure out how to find a shepherd themselves. How does it matter to them what he does to his belongings? Anyway, he hopes they will buy at a fair price. Otherwise, he's going to release the sheep and leave. They are free to capture them, but they will probably have a hard time doing so. The village chief can't believe this. This bastard always keeps his word, so he decides to just hand him a pouch of money and kick him out. As they both leave, Turan thinks that those villagers still owe him compensation for everything he did, right? Kiorn notes that he has no intention of collecting, and he wasn't the one who caught the beast, right? Eventually they end up at a crossroads, where they must part ways. Kiorn apologizes for refusing to travel together, but he is much more comfortable alone. Turan understands and thanks him for everything. Kiorn tells him to take care, and Turan hopes that they can meet again with smiling faces. As he left, Turan watched Kiorn for a long time. Only later did he realize why he didn't want the old knight to speak to him formally. Although he never lacked affection because of his mother, the boy had secretly been yearning for a father figure, someone who could be a role model for what kind of man he should become. With that, Turan keeps traveling, eventually ending up in an arid desert. He sees a few people, guessing they are merchants, and goes up to them, wanting to ask directions. A grizzled man asks who he is to block their path, and Turan notes that he is traveling alone and wanted to ask directions about the nearest city. The old man tells him that if he follows the road they came from, he will reach a city called Mure. Turan understands and turns to leave, thanking them for their help, but one of them stops him, asking if he's really just going to leave after getting information. Turan asks what he means, and the man notes that if he received something, he should give something in return, like that bulging bag of his. Turan now understands that, as he sees them with swords drawn, they are bandits. The old man reveals the armor below his cloak, and notes that this is recklessness. This is a wasteland where nobody would find it strange if someone died, right? So, he will gently take off that bag and cloak while they are being nice, as they really don't want to do any unnecessary work. Turan understands, they are bandits who kill people. Well, he was just waiting for a moment to practice what he has learned from that man anyway. The bandits can't help but laugh. He might have just gone insane to be talking like some kind of wizard. In response, Turan flicks his hand upward and summons a gust of wind, which sends them all flying. Instead of just generating wind out of thin air, if he shapes it with his hands and amplifies it, he uses far less mana. He didn't know he could whip up wind so strong using so little mana. The bandits are on the dusty ground recovering, so Turan takes a bit of water out of his water skin and freezes it in a smaller, calculated strike. His victim can only watch as he is pummeled with the icicles, unable to do anything against their steady advance. Turan doesn't react. He wonders if this wasn't supposed to be a spell that is useful when there's a lot of water nearby. If he's honest, just throwing stones feels faster and a lot stronger. The bandit leader puts his hand up. He apologizes. They did not realize they were against the grace of a wizard. He begs for forgiveness, just this once. As he spouts more nonsense, the three other bandits rush Turan from behind, but he sensed their presence long ago. So with one stomp, he spears them up using hardened sand, making them a memento of his power. The bandit leader is completely shocked. It didn't take a second for his men to die. Turan wants to ask one thing, and the bandit chief immediately bows, noting that he will answer everything. Turan asks why they even attacked without any semblance of a plan. If he's a traveler walking alone, he could be a wizard. The bandit chief explains that it's because he bowed his head. Even when they spoke rudely, he bowed and greeted them, so they assumed he was an ordinary person. Turan thanks him, as that taught him something quite useful. The bandit chief thinks that he will really be spared, before he notices the glowing orb of water standing right above his head. Turan remembers Kiorn's words. From now on, he's going to meet a lot of people, and there's something he absolutely must tell them. He should never show mercy to scum like bandits, the kind who will not hesitate to harm others for profit. The reason he is saying this so firmly, he probably understands, because if he spares a life out of pity, he could end up harming 10 good people because of it. Turan looks at the leader's corpse, thinking that he's stalled enough, and continues walking. The road the bandits dragged their cart along on, those clear wheel tracks cutting across the sand, it left one thought. which was searing in Turan's mind. He's just killed people. He felt a bit of guilt, but he could not just let them go, because Kiorn's warning was sounding in his mind, again and again. People who could decide, without as much as a second thought, to rob and kill for profit, would target others again, at any time. Like wheel tracks in the desert that are slowly fading away as weeds grow over them, Turan's chaotic heart gradually settled down as he recalled Kiorn's teaching, and just like that, he arrived in a new world. As he walks over the horizon, he sees his destination, the small city of Murray. But to him, this is the biggest thing in the world. He walks around inside of it. It's his first time seeing so many people at once. Even the architecture is completely different than the village. Now it really feels like he is in a city. He walks up to a fruit stand, where the seller greets him warmly and asks what he would like. Turan tells him he's not a customer, thinking about what Kiorn said about finding an inn after getting to the city, as there should always be one. The fruit seller tells him to get lost if he's not buying, as he's distracting his other customers. Turan doesn't understand why he's acting rude. Is it some unspoken rule in cities that he has to buy fruit before asking questions? He points to an apple and asks how much it is. When the fruit seller says, 2 dupi, Turan looks in his hand, trying to figure out what that is. The fruit seller can see he's an outsider, so he tells him that he can pay with other coins. As he pays, Turan asks where he can find an inn, and the fruit seller tells him to go straight down the road behind the Cape Shot. When he turns left, he will find a place with a blue roof, which is the biggest inn in the city. When he arrives there, Lena, one of the inn staff, welcomes him in and notes that he's quite handsome. Turan asks how much the night is, and she says, 16 dupi. As he pays, he notes that he has something he would like to ask. Is there a monster nearby with a bounty on it? He thinks that he must kill monsters and absorb their mana, and he said hunting monsters would earn money too. She's not answering though, and then points towards the bar, noting that there's no such thing as free in this world. After getting a drink, Lena tells him about the city hall, but Turan doesn't really know what that is. This surprises Lena. He really is from the countryside. She explains that city halls are where they handle various public affairs. The officials who work there are employed by the city lord. It's probably closed since the sun is down already, but if he wants to find a monster bounty, he should go to the city hall tomorrow. She asks if he's a monster hunter too, but again, Turan doesn't really know what that is. She explains that people talk about it. If an ordinary person hunts monsters, they become a wizard. So he wants to become one too, right? Naturally, that's just a baseless superstition. Suddenly, someone puts their hand on Turan's shoulder and says, "It's no superstition. That's a real fact. He saw it with his own eyes. This is Midan, a self-titled monster hunter." Lena is surprised to see him alive, but Midan told her before, he's not allowing himself to die until he becomes a wizard. Turan points at his shoulder, and Midan takes his hand off, apologizing. Turan gets up and wants to know more about what he just said. Midan explains that wizards get stronger when they hunt monsters. By the same principle, if an ordinary person were to kill a monster, they can become a wizard. The 4 of them are hunting monsters to become wizards. Turan asks if this means that one of them is already a wizard, but Midan denies that claim. In this city, there are only the Lord's wizard and 3 under him. He also heard him say he wants to hunt monsters, but for that his gear is rather shabby. Doesn't he have a weapon? Turan pulls out his sling, and Midan notices how worn it is. Turan explains that it's good for firing something about the size of an egg rather quickly. Midan thinks that with that, he could easily hunt rabbit or fox monsters, and also notes that they were looking for one more shooter, so why doesn't he come hunting with them? Turan smiles but refuses, and retreats to his room for the night. There is no reason to go hunting together with someone else, but this really was a chaotic day. He's still finding it hard to believe he actually left the village. He's wondering what will happen, but then hears a knock at the door. When he asks who it is, nobody answers, and he remembers what he talked about with Kiorn while on the road, that he shouldn't let his guard down, even in an inn. Even if it's a city, it doesn't mean that he is safe. He should never let his guard down. Now, Turan is slowly turning the door handle, manifesting a bunch of mana in his hand, but after opening the door, he finds Lena, who thought that the room she set up for him might be cold, so she came to warm him up. Turan doesn't understand, even after she tugs at her tunic. What does she mean by that? Lena notes that it's exactly what it sounds like, but Turan really doesn't get what it sounds like. She comes closer, and notes that for a small amount of money, she will do whatever he wants. Turan tells her that there's nothing he wants, but she advises him not to lie. She can tell just by looking at his face. Unfortunately for her, Turan's face looks like someone who has reached enlightenment, as he learned from Kiorn. Out of all the lessons, this one he was the most adamant about. He advised him to always be careful with inn-maids or night workers in general. Most of them carry STDs after all. Wizards are naturally strong to any disease, but even so, if he's careless, He could pass it on when he gets with another woman. He should not let desire trap him into something he will regret. As he hears Lena storm off, Turan thinks that cities aren't easy to live in either. The fruit guy, even Lena now, to think they would put a price on even small bits of information and conversation. They really are cold-hearted. As he tries to sleep though, he hears Midan's group talk as they rise to the top. One of them asking Midan why he was trying to bring that guy along earlier. Honestly, he did not look like much of anything. The others in the group agree. He seemed cocky, a perfect monster victim. Midan tells them that it's because he reminds him of himself when he was young. Hearing he hunts with a weapon like that made him worry. If he is at least next to him, he figured he might survive a little longer. Turan smiles and turns to face the ceiling. Perhaps not everyone in the city is as cold-hearted as he first thought. The first thing next morning, he goes to the city hall, where the clerk there asks how he can help. Turan asks if he is an official, and when the man confirms as such, he notes that he came here to hunt monsters. He also remembers what Kiorn told him, that the world would not be kind to him, because if they think about it the other way around, there is no reason to be kind. If he wants people to treat him with kindness, the method is simple. He should reveal himself as a wizard. With that, the ordinary people will bow their heads as he walks by. Turan is handed one of the bounties, which he can't take, so he has to give it back. He looks at the drawing and asks if it's a crow monster. The clerk tells him it's most definitely not a cat, and even if it's unlucky, if somehow he kills a monster, he should bring its corpse here. As if a wizard doesn't disperse the mana, it becomes a wraith. If he does leave a monster to become a wraith, he will be executed by the power of the city law. Turan already knows what happens when leaving monster corpses be. He will not repeat that mistake again. He asks if knights don't hunt monsters too, but the clerk asks him, does he really think they are people with time to spare? A knight's job is to maintain public order of the city. Hunting monsters outside the city? That's for thugs like him to handle. Turan says nothing as he leaves, leaving the clerk to think that he will be another corpse they will have to bury. Surprisingly though, Turan comes back with the crow, which was cleaned as cleanly as possible. The clerks are all surprised and ask how in the hell he brought it so fast. Did he kill it alone? Turan confirms as such, and asks how he receives the bounty. One of the clerks immediately rushes to get it, and as he hands it over to him, he notes that he must have worked hard, so he should get some rest. The clerks continue looking at the crow. Even its wings are intact. Is it possible to bring back a blade crow without it shooting one feather? Suddenly though, the clerk with a bushy mustache sees that Turan is still here. He asks if there are any other monsters worth hunting, and they realize that he can still go on. After a few days of hunting, as requested, Lena brings out the most expensive items in the menu, but she's never dreamed that someone like him could defeat 30 monsters in just 3 days. He probably made a bunch of dough, right? Turan notes that money isn't his only goal, and thinks that the goal is the mana of the monsters. Thanks to that, he most definitely got stronger. Compared to when he met Kiorn, his mana has increased several-fold, but he can already feel a limit. With only weak monster mana, it might be hard to get stronger. He also notes that they didn't steal a bit of this, did they? As he thinks there's something missing. Lena tells him he ate it all by himself, somehow, and the chef notes that he made it for the first time in a while, so he's glad he enjoyed it. Turan gets up, noting that it was all delicious, and 2 of Midan's group approach. One grabs his cloak and asks how he can eat something tasty by himself. He's a skinny runt, but he's been making a ton of money lately, or so he's heard. As he asks for some charity from his partners, Turan Karate chops him in the face, as this is basically all of the charity that he wants to give out. The other dashes toward him with a pretty open punch, so Turan just steps aside and knocks him on his ass. The first one, now recovered, grabs a chair and rushes in, but Turan just blocks it and flicks his head so hard he falls on it. With Lena's scream to not fight in the inn, the fighting stops, and that night, Midan comes with everyone and apologizes for what his guys did. He gave the both of them a proper scolding, and he can promise that it will never happen again. The thing is, they've been tight on money lately, so they probably got jealous when they saw him. Under his command, they both apologize. Turan asks if things really are that hard, and Midan explains that things are limited. In about 3 days, he doesn't think they will be able to afford the room fee, but that is their problem to deal with. Turan suddenly produces a pouch of coins and notes that this is repayment for the kindness he showed before, when he said he was worried and tried to bring him along. Midan is shocked that he actually heard that, but Turan notes that nothing is for free. In exchange, he wants some information too, which Midan is more than happy to provide. The next day, as Turan goes to the nearby forest, he thinks that this might be the last hunt in this city. Midan gave him information about the next one, so it's about time he left. He gave out a lot more information than he expected. Midan really is a good guy. He doesn't feel as seasoned as Kiorn, but that just makes him purer and kinder. Suddenly, he feels a familiar smell and dashes toward it, praying that he is wrong. Unfortunately, his nose hasn't betrayed him this time. He smelled blood, and he found a dead person, someone from Midan's group. Right next to him, he finds Midan too, who was clutching some of the coins he had given him. He crouches down to look at him better, wondering what the hell happened. Suddenly, one of them, who is barely alive at this point, says rabbit, again and again, until Turan faces the thing that killed them, who is munching on one of his comrades. It's a rabbit, all right, one dragged out of the darkest pits of hell. With a sudden dash that doesn't even make a sound at first, the beast lunges at Turan, who barely has time to dodge. He takes out his slingshot and throws a rock at the beast, which suddenly splits into three after getting close to it. Unfortunately, the beast uses its ears to defend against his technique and rushes in again. However, when it sees that Turan is no longer there, the beast stops in its tracks and looks around on confusement, just as Turan appears from behind and stabs it in the neck. After that, he dashes away and disappears again, making the rabbit charge at a tree, but it doesn't stop at just at that tree. Using its sharp teeth, it cuts down tree after tree, this being the last of its powers. Eventually, it roars out in anger, and the wound previously incurred on it takes its toll, making the beast fall down, completely dead. Turan immediately absorbs its mana, and almost immediately, he can feel that the amount is vastly different. It's more than the leopard monster he first encountered. The survivor can't believe it. He's a wizard. But then, why hide his identity? Turan doesn't answer, and instead asks if any of the four here have a family that he can pass their belongings to. But the young man simply cries as he says no, and looks out at his dead boss. That night, when Turan spoke to him, he explained that there's a great city nearby called Orem. It has something called a library, which is said to hold thousands of books. Turan was interested by this, but Midan explained that not just anyone can enter the library. Apparently, only wizards are allowed inside. At that moment, Turan decided to go to the great city he mentioned. Turan has taken his time to bury everyone. He looks at the four graves and hopes that they are all in a happier place as he leaves. Eventually, Turan arrives at the next city, and as he waits in line, he feels a bit embarrassed that he was shocked by the small city of Mure, as this is at least twice as big. He also didn't expect there to be this many people trying to enter, and they even have more guards. Perhaps they are screening for wanted criminals or something. Well, it's to be expected of a great city. It's got a more established system. Suddenly, he is told to halt and denied entry. As the guard has never seen clothes so filthy, he should go over to a corner and at least dust himself off. After that, Turan is granted entry and finds the library with ease, as it's pretty hard to miss. It's pretty overwhelming. It must have been built by magic. He approaches the gate and notes that he is trying to enter. One of the knights tells him that only wizards can enter, and Turan notes that he is one. The knight doesn't believe that. Is he trying to die by impersonating a wizard? Since he doesn't believe him, he tries to feel out for his mana. Kiorn previously told him that wizards recognize each other by sensing the other's mana. They can even tell whether or not the person is stronger than them. Turan doesn't dampen his mana, and just its presence makes the guards fall on his ass. He knows that this man is no ordinary wizard. He is at least noble class, or perhaps even higher. He immediately gets up, introducing himself as Kenya, a knight of House Valius, and would like to know which house he is from. Turan asks if he has to say, but Kenya denies such a thing. To use the library, though, he needs permission from the Master of Valtus, so he will contact the house immediately. Turan at that point thought that it would be a simple process, but now, as he is being bathed by maids in a bathtub bigger than his old house, he wonders how this even happened. Turan tells them to stop, and asks if it's a problem if he washes himself. One of the maids explains that if they fail to properly attend to him, they will be punished, so he lets them do what they want. After that, the maid who dresses him up just stares with her mouth gaping, making Turan wonder if there is something on his face. The maid apologizes. She was momentarily stunned by his beauty. Turan tells her that she needn't apologize, but they do not wish to be spoken to so casually. Suddenly someone else enters, a younger-looking girl, who is also surprised by his new look. Just now, he looked like a beggar, but after washing and dressing him, he looks like a prince. Turan introduces himself, and Azella does so too. She asks what house he is a part of, but Turan notes that for personal reasons, it's pretty difficult to say. Azella thinks it's a real shame, but then smiles. He's hiding who he is, so maybe she can play a little prank. Suddenly, she lets all of her mana out, as she wants to see what he will do. In response, Turan activates his own mana, and the ensuing clash sends ripples throughout the entire room, making the butlers and maids crouch down slightly in fear of the sheer force. After the mana entangles itself a bit, they both let go, and Azella is impressed as her hands are shaking just from the sheer power he exuded. Immediately, she closes the distance between them, entering his personal space, and asks if he wants to marry her. Naturally, Turan is beyond confused, and doesn't even know where this came from, but Azella just disengages and notes that it was just a joke. He shouldn't have such a serious reaction, although he should think about it once. The seat next to her is unceremoniously empty right now. Turan watches her leave, but then notices his hand, which is also shaking. She has mana on par with his, at the very least. Is this level perhaps normal among nobility? After a bit, he is taken to the main office, where the Lord of Aurum, Valtas, welcomes him and notes that he should introduce himself. Turan does so, and Valtas asks if he wishes to use his library. A lot of people come from all over the place after hearing strange rumors, so he will say it in advance. There isn't any amazing ancient magic in this library, nor some secret method to increase mana. Turan is fine with that. He wasn't seeking something like that in the first place. Valtas says that, if he does still want it though, he won't stop him. In any case, there is nothing inside that counts as confidential information related to their house. It has gotten rather late today, so he should rest and come back tomorrow. Would that be acceptable? Turan agrees, thanking him for his kindness, which he will not forget soon. Turan makes his way to the library, and the guards immediately bow down to him, calling him an esteemed guest and welcoming him into the Sky Library. As Turan walks inside, the first thing he sees is the very long staircase and the sheer amount of books inside of this library. It looks more like a very posh guild than anything. Suddenly, someone else approaches, noting that it is finally nice to meet him. She is the librarian of this place. By the order of their lord, she will explain the rules for using it. Turan is surprised that such a brat is the librarian of such a big place, but continues listening. The girl explains that the rules are simple. If he damages anything, he compensates. He will not take books out, and while using the library, she will be watching him the entire time. Turan agrees, but when he is reading, could she stand a little far away, as he feels rather uncomfortable right now. As they walk, Turan notes that, if she is the librarian, she must have read the books here too, right? She confirms as such. If he needs something, finding it for him is what she does best. What would he want? Something romantic. Maybe books about ancient history. Or maybe, since he's so young, something more spicy. Turan just stares at her for a bit, and then notes that he wants to learn basic common sense about the world. So the librarian girl pulls out a bunch of books. These books are hundreds of years old, so there are not many that will suit his needs. However, this section might help him just a little. Turan thanks her and picks up one of the books, noting that this is what one looks like, huh? He gently opens it in the middle, and immediately finds it rather amazing. He repeated this same routine every day, reading in the library. Now, he came to understand this world's geography, different races and etiquette of wizards, how various items were manufactured and processed, and even monsters and relics from the era of the Olden Empire. With each piece of knowledge he accumulated, his world, something that was once nothing but an unknown space, and the bunch of sheep, grew clearer and more vivid. Valtas at one point summons him, noting that he heard he's been making excellent use of the library. He trusts that he also understands that, separate from treating him as a noble, allowing him to use the library is an act of sheer goodwill. He would like to receive payment for that goodwill, so Turan asks what Valtas's demand is. Valtas explains that a monster has appeared north of Aurum and has been attacking travelers. Turan asks if he wishes him to hunt it, but Valtas was not done. 4 knights who have gone to subjugate it have never returned. They were eaten, it seems. A noble will have to step in personally, but their house can only mobilize 2 people at the moment. At most, he wants to know what he needs to clear this up. Turan agrees that protecting people is what wizards do. However, something feels off. Aren't wizards usually the type who don't get involved in things like this? Before he can think about it more, Valtas explains that the northern road they've blocked is an important trade route for this city. It's already been blocked for 10 days, so they have to open it quickly to resume trade. Turan smiles. 10 days ago was before he arrived in Aurum, so that's why they let him use the library so readily. After a few hours of getting set up, the hunting party gets out, with Azella in the front, noting that her father really is something else to send a guest for a monster hunt. Does he find them that unreliable? Also, she is not blaming him. She is just saying her father is making a huge fuss over nothing. Her brother notes that calling the Lord fuzzy isn't that a bit much, but Azella tells him to drop it. He also turns to Turan, noting that this is their first time properly meeting. He is Marvin Valtas, and he is looking forward to working with him. Turan says likewise, and as they walk through the forest, Azella is kicking rocks and such because she is bored. Marvin comes closer to Turan and asks if, by any chance, he is interested in her, his big sister. Turan immediately denies this, and Marvin says it's a relief, without doing much to explain as to why. Suddenly they all stop, and the knights go to check out what seems to be a broken carriage. It was probably done by the creature. They forbade anyone from going north from their side, so these guys must have come from the south and got attacked. Turan looks at the wreckage a bit, and then finds a handprint, immediately recognizing it as the handprint of a monkey. Azella asks what he means, so Turan explains that it looks like it attacked the peddlers and went back into the forest. If they find the trail and pursue it, they should be able to find it. Monkeys are playful like that. Azella wonders if they can. She can barely use that kind of magic, and Marvin agrees. Maybe there's a knight who can. Turan notes that he'll try looking, which makes Azella curious. Is he from that bloodline? Turan explains that he uses it a lot, so he's used to it. He begins to smell a piece of discarded cloth, and immediately he gets a scent which goes deep into the forest. He points towards it, and they follow it until it stops at a nearby river. It appears that the monkey washed its body. Azella wonders if he's really saying a mere beast did that to avoid being tracked, but Turan thinks that perhaps it washed because it wanted to. Suddenly that same scent comes back tenfold, and Turan tells them to be careful behind. Sure enough, the monkey is already there, screeching at them and preparing a pelting of rocks which goes through the night like a scattershot. Turan simply dodges, but he sees that Azella actually used her own men to cover herself, and then discarded them like pieces of trash. It seems that his mother really wasn't wrong about this. Azella gives out the order to attack, and seeing so many people charging, the monkey immediately begins to run away, not wanting to take on this disadvantageous fight. At the same time, Turan prepares a rock, and as they continue chasing it, the rock smashes through the wind near Azella's head and goes through them all before hitting the monkey squarely in its chest, taking it down with one strike. They all look behind to see who did it, and naturally it's Turan, who doesn't seem to have even broken a sweat. Suddenly, the monkey that is still somehow alive begins to thrash around on the ground. Azella decides to put an end to it using her powerful fire ability to create a fiery snake that engulfs the monkey, dealing with it instantly. Turan is glad to finally see the bloodline ability of House Valtas, pyromaniacs. The knights are really glad that this is over, and Azella tells Turan that she got chills for a second while that rock was coming toward them. Marvin asks if she was scared, but she tells him to shut up. He is the one who screamed like a little girl, wasn't he? As they continue to tease and celebrate, the knights recover, all seemingly alive, which is a surprise to Turan. Yeah, he's still confused, though this was a surprise attack by a monster, but this was a fight where they could have avoided even serious injuries like those incurred by the people Azella used. Considering one's body gets stronger based on their mana, these two should be several times tougher than any knights, and yet they didn't hesitate to use people weaker than them as shields. Marvin sees him staring and asks if something is wrong, but Turan denies it, moping about and coming closer, as they need to absorb all the mana. With that, they all put their hands over the monkey, and they begin absorbing. Turan is thinking that, just like the book said, even if multiple people absorb at once, the degree of enhancement doesn't seem to get reduced at all. Azella and Marvin stop their absorption almost immediately, being at their growth limit, but Turan doesn't stop at all. Azella now understands why her father sent them along with him. That level of spell proficiency and mana capacity that even rivals her. To think he is a noble who hasn't even reached his growth limit yet. Noon falls as they walk back to the city, and Marvin turns to Turan, noting that if it weren't for him, they wouldn't have been able to defeat that monkey. From tracking ability to landing the hit that knocked the monster down, it was all him. Turan noted that he didn't do anything spectacular. If anything, he regrets noticing it too late and letting it get a first strike. He didn't think it would have a search ability as well. Marvin asks if it had such a thing, and Turan confirms as such. It seems like different abilities awaken depending on monsters' external traits. The monkey they killed had big hands and big eyes, but it looked nothing like its original form. It probably awakened an ability to throw string things at a greater force, and the ability to see far away, or see through forests. Marvin is impressed. He can't believe he figured that out in such a short time, but Turan notes that he looked through a monster encyclopedia in the library earlier, so that's why he knows. Marvin knows of the library. How couldn't he? But nobody really goes there. Azella agrees she went in once a long time ago, because she was curious, but it was filled with difficult books, so she left without even reading half a volume. Turan tells her to give it a chance next time, and ask the librarian if there are any easy books to read. Azella is confused. The librarian? Was there even someone like that in the library? She doesn't remember as such. A few short moments later, Turan goes back to the library, and the librarian immediately welcomes him back. Turan just sighs with a rather melancholic smile on his face. He was careless. No knight or commoner would ever call a noble by their name. In this city, the way one addresses a noble is only using esteemed one, and besides, the way that she looks doesn't exactly scream librarian either. He asks how she knows of his name, surprising the librarian, but then she smiles and notes that it took a while for him to notice. She actually got it from his permit. As long as it's around this library, her gaze reaches everywhere. Turan asks how he should address her, but since she says he can call her whatever he wants, how about something cute like darling? Turan knows that he'll just use librarian as usual, but the librarian says that he's way too stiff. It's pretty awkward when he suddenly becomes polite. After using her for so many days, telling her to do this and that, Turan claims she did not do any of those things, and did not come that close, as it's getting a bit burdensome. He asks if she perhaps was a wizard from the old empire, but she denies it. She wasn't a person to begin with. She is a kind of spirit, but it suits her, right? When a soul inhabits something living, it becomes a living spirit. When it inhabits something neither alive nor dead, it is just a spirit. In other words, the library itself is her. This form is just for comfortable communication. Basically, it's the user's preference, although his preference is a little weird. Turan tells her to stop making stuff up, but the librarian isn't. It's true that she's like a reflection in water. Turan analyzes her clothes and actually puts a hand through her, making her annoyed, as it's pretty rude to just touch a lady out of nowhere. Turan apologizes, and the librarian notes that it's really frustrating that she cannot exert her power on any intruders. If she could, she would have pushed every last bastard who carelessly took books out of the library in these past years. Turan notes that House Valtas does not know she exists, or perhaps it's that nobody who has ever used the library has seen her. The librarian confirms as such. That's because, up until now, there was no one with the qualifications to perceive her. Her creator made it so that those whose type is completely beyond a certain level could see her. So this is pretty romantic, right? Turan asks what she means by type, and she notes that it's basically what wizards call bloodline. He asks if she could tell him more about it, but she notes he should ask that of his parents. When Turan notes that he's an orphan, she decides to check it out for him. All she needs is consent to examine his body. Turan immediately gets creeped out and wonders if this truly is the official procedure. But suddenly, the librarian just puts a hand in his chest, getting giddy that they are connected. Turan tells her not to say such weird things, but it doesn't really hurt. She continues analyzing him and notes that there are a few small bits here and there, but the bigger chunks are the pursuer and hunter bloodlines. Was that a trait of House Zahar? Turan confirms as such, but the librarian's eyes widen visibly as there is more. It was mixed with something. Turan asks what she means, and she explains that he is the result of two people with different bloodlines. Turan asks what the other one is, but she doesn't know since it's still locked. A locked bloodline isn't that rare in bloodline combinations. As he grows stronger, he will unlock it eventually. This makes Turan think of his mother. She was far too polite and educated to be just a commoner. Maybe she was a descendant of some noble, a bloodline so diluted it couldn't even hold knight-level mana. Turan thanks the librarian, who knows that if he is thankful, he should stay with her one more month. After learning the true identity of the library spirit, Turan did not continue reading alone. He kept asking about the contents of books and requesting explanations. The librarian even knew the knowledge contained in books that had been plundered from the library and vanished over the past thousands of years. She taught him a lot of different tricks, and having the laws of nature taught to him in such plain words was a treasure beyond measure. He learned that all kinds of diseases arise through such microorganisms, and that the decay of living things is caused by the feeding of such germs. Not only that, but he also grasped the most basic principles too, like the refraction of light, the generation of heat through friction, the process of how living things get injured, and how they heal. He decides to experiment with decay at one point, and as soon as he touches the apple he was about to experiment on, it immediately begins to decay and go bad. The librarian asks how it is, and he finds it incredible. It's not something that magic can't do, but just understanding the principle makes him consume a lot less mana. Simply changing the way he perceived the world raised his skill as a wizard significantly. Maybe some powerful houses are monopolizing knowledge like this. If every wizard knew something like this, they'd lose their competitive edge, wouldn't they? The librarian says it's no wonder people's level of knowledge keeps dropping as time goes on. Now she kind of understands why. One day, Turan knows that it's about time he should leave, as the owner of this place has been openly giving him hints to get out of here. The librarian doesn't want to see him go, and wants to be taken with him, but she just flops through him as she tries to grab him. Turan asks if she can even leave, and she denies it. But can't he stay here, as she'll take good care of him? Turan passes, and she knows that he is not going to stay, whatever the case. This land has a lot of God's legacy, so he should go look around once in a while. Maybe among them there's a spirit who might know even more than she does. Turan tells her not to worry, as he will come visit from time to time, and the librarian doesn't turn to him, noting that it's his choice, as she doesn't really care. Turan just smiles softly and tells her not to worry, as there are still a lot of books he hasn't read yet. As he begins walking out of the city, he thinks that, according to the continental map he got from the library, Zahar's base and real desert is east of Orem. He will head to Zahar and find more clues about his parents. He takes his time walking. There is no need to rush. After all, if the clues were going to disappear, they would have already vanished over the last 18 years he has lived, and if they are still there, then going a little later won't make them disappear either. As he continues walking through the forest, taking down monster after monster that comes his way, suddenly, he hears a large and rather crude neigh of a horse. He approaches the sound and spots a downed person behind the horse, which is actually a monster. But seeing as how it has a saddle, is it protecting his owner? Two strange figures think that this is a real demon. What kind of pet monster is this strong? Turan wonders what's happening. Is the monster the one that's being attacked? Suddenly he spots that those two figures are dark elves. One of them tells the other to try to create an opening somehow. The other notes it's easy for him to say. They begin to chant together and use something that Turan has read about in the books, dark elf necromancy. He wonders if he should help, but the men lying over there may have been the one who attacked the dark elves first. Suddenly he sees one of the dark elves munching on a human hand. The woman tells him to give her some of that too, but he tells her to eat her own. She certainly must have taken some for herself already, right? Turan understands they were cannibals after all, right? He uses stealth, and as they begin to consume the hands in earnest, he unleashes a mighty rock through the male dark elf's head, shattering it completely. The woman barely registers what is happening as the guy's blood begins to drop on the ground, but she immediately tells her summons to gather. As they do, one of them manages to block Turan's next strike almost immediately. She sends the bull in the direction from which the strike was coming from, and the bull charges in, destroying the entire forest. However, the dark elf woman knows that he used stealth too, so let's see if he can still hide after this. She summons a spirit that can immediately see hidden things and manages to spot him, disabling his stealth. She immediately sets her summons onto him, but Turan smacks his hands together and opens his palms, revealing a flurry of fire that he crashes into the summons. The fox is taken out immediately, but the bull still charges in, forcing him to dodge. These guys are incredibly fast. It's a good thing he took one of them out beforehand. Suddenly, a summon grabs his ankle, munching on it and holding him in place. He kicks it away, but this gave enough time for the bull to come close enough so he gets thrown into a nearby tree, making him cough up blood and land roughly. The dark elf woman is giddy with pride. She will make him beg for his life. Suddenly though, the horse monster from before sucks the woman into her face and begins pummeling her into the ground. The woman summons her minions back, telling them to help her, and they begin doing so, giving Turan a wide berth to recover. The woman feels humiliated to be kicked around by a horse, but before she can even get up, another rock strike flies through the air at incredible speeds and takes off her head, ending the fight completely. The summons naturally disappear. Turan lands on one leg, thinking that this took a lot out of him more than he ever expected. The monster horse comes closer to him, smelling his hair, and basically offering a sign of worry. Turan pets the horse gently, thanking her for her help, as he would have probably died without it. As the moon lights up the forest, the man, too, wakes up near a fire, a bit confused by the situation. Turan is glad to see him awake and explains that he saw him being attacked by dark elves and saved him. The horse, Tili, also comes closer, glad to see that her master is awake. Turan says he has a pretty good horse. Not only did it understand that it had to protect its master, but even that it needed to move to a safer space. The man thanks Turan for saving him. He is Asus of Hausberg. Turan also introduces himself and asks if there was any particular reason he came into conflict with the Dark Elves. Asus explains that there wasn't. He was simply on a pilgrimage with his retainers when they suddenly ambushed them without any provocation. He heard that those other races were savages, but he never imagined they would be this bad. He begins to cry earnestly as he mourns the people he lost and apologizes, as those people were very precious to him. Turan asks if they were family, but Asus explains they were the knights and servants who came on this pilgrimage with him. They practically raised him since he was little. Turan is surprised that he is such a good person, and asks if he knows how many dark elves attacked him. He killed 2 of them. Asus thinks it should be all of them, as he did not see any more. But just to confirm, Turan searches around the forest, and alas, finds no dark elves nearby. Asus bows his head, and asks if he has any urgent business right now. Turan notes that he is in the middle of a pilgrimage himself. Asus is surprised to hear that. Despite having such power, he's on a pilgrimage. Could he be the child of some great house? But then why is he alone? Turan thinks it would be quite difficult to explain, and he is not that strong. He only managed to ambush one and take him down, then barely fought off the other with the help of his horse. Suddenly, Turan lets out his mana, and Asus subconsciously does the same. It's a form of greeting to wizards after all, and Turan can see that they are basically equal. This man has an unexpected amount of mana. If he hadn't absorbed the dark elves when he did, he would have even had less than him. Asus thinks that, honestly, his raw mana alone isn't at a level where he would be overwhelmed by two necromancers, which means, conversely, that he must have been a noble born from a powerful bloodline. If he is on a pilgrimage, then he probably hasn't reached his growth limit just yet. But why would someone like him be traveling alone? Asus notes that if he doesn't have a fixed destination yet, would it be alright for him to invite him to Hausberg? He would like to repay him for saving his life and escort him safely back to his house. Since they of Berg are enchanters, vessels of the Arabian, the great house to the north, and the bloodline that has crafted magical tools for entire generations, he wants to make the finest magic tool worthy of someone who saved his life. After a while, they bury everyone who has died. Asus turns to him and thanks him for not mocking him. He is a noble, and yet he cried at the secret sacrifices of his subordinates. That was pathetic of him, wasn't it? Turan asks why he thinks that's pathetic, and Asus notes that it's what his father has taught him. Those who fell in righteous battle shall dwell in the heavenly palace with the gods. To grieve them would be unkind and weak. A true noble must move forward, standing upon that sacrifice. But if not grieving over a family member's death is strength, then he doesn't think he could ever become truly strong. Turan smiles and tells him that's not a sign of weakness. It's one of the kindest things he's heard. Asus thanks him and notes that, since they are going to be traveling together anyway, would it be alright if he spoke more comfortably with him going forward, as the age difference between them isn't that great either? Turan agrees, and Asus says he looks forward to working with his new friend, extending a hand. Turan looks at it a bit. A friend, huh? He takes the hand, noting that he looks forward to it as well. Asus thinks that they should rest before continuing, but Turan wonders why he pulled this thing out. Asus opens it and explains that it's a cold storage chest. He's kept several things in it from the last time they were in the city. Turan asks if it's always cold, and Asus agrees. As such, that thanks to it, most foods can be stored for about a week without an issue. Cold food can be reheated, and if he presses this button, water comes out. This magical tool creates shelter from gatherwood, and this other one sounds an alarm when anyone approaches. Also, what he is wearing is also a magical tool with a self-cleaning function. From what Turan knows, magic tools aren't common at all, so this is pretty impressive. Just that one set of clothing alone will be worth saving his life already, but Asus tells him that his life is worth way more than this. When he returns to the main house, he promises to reward him with far better things. If they won't allow it, he will have to make it himself, and there is something far greater than these things. During the short time they've traveled together, he's seen so many types of his magic that he's lost count. Animal control, freezing, levitation, liquid manipulation, enhancement, luminescence, restraint, instant death, terrain transformation, even lightning strikes. Did he spend his entire life just practicing magic? Or is it perhaps just some kind of bloodline ability that lets him master anything he wants? Turan doesn't know how to answer. He just can. That's it. He knows that they thought they agreed not to pry into which family he comes from, but Asus was just kidding. Anyway, how old is he? His face doesn't look older than 30, but surely he has lived around 80 years or so, hasn't he? Turan notes that he has about a month left until his birthday, and he turns 18 this year. Asus is shocked. He is actually turning 43 this year, though honestly a 21 or 22-year-old difference isn't really important to people like them. He should have known when he had that magic power to take down two dark elves like that. He just wasn't expecting there to be two geniuses like him in the world. Turan asks what he means about two, and Asus notes that, though not quite his level, actually they are similar, but the other one does have an incredible bloodline anyway. He knows another genius around his age. She is his cousin, actually. Turan asks if that person could also make magic tools for him, but he denies it. Such as she is from the main house, she is basically a princess of Arabian. Perhaps she'll even become the head of the house someday. As they continue walking, he explains that, unlike the ordinary wizard houses, the heads of great houses don't easily pass their positions to their own children, because in a great house, there are easily dozens of relatives in the same generation alone, and naturally, at least one of them is stronger than the head's own child. Yet among the head's children, Maisa was born with the greatest talent known to the family. After awakening her magic power, she mastered all manner of combat magic in just 10 years. As a result, she received full support from her house, and now at 21 she's one of the core members of the house. Turan asks, with that much magic power at that age, did the house perhaps perform a funeral? Asus confirms as such. When their eldest granduncle passed, his magic power was devoured by her. Naturally, they received some portions as well. Turan thinks that it's pretty clear why the great houses maintain their supremacy now, but Asus takes him out of his thinking by pointing out that they are almost there, making Turan look forward toward the Deccan Plains. It's the central territory of Arabian. Eventually, they arrive at the territory of House Berg, which is Zavalin, and after getting inside the castle, Asus's mother welcomes him warmly, asking what's happening and why he came home early. He immediately hugs her with tears in his eyes, calling her mom, making Turan wonder if this man really is 43. His father arrives too, noting that he should mind his dignity, as they should at least address her as mother. He apologizes and explains that this is to introduce a new friend from the south. When he was in grave danger, he risked his life to save him. Without him, he wouldn't have made it back here alive. His mother doesn't understand. The pilgrimage route wasn't supposed to be dangerous. What happened? Asus explains that they were attacked by dark elf sorcerers who use necromancy. His mother immediately loses her cool. Those filthy wretches dared to target one of her children. She'll take an army and tear them all to shreds. However, his father remains calm and tells her to compose herself. She is the house head, and people are watching. He then approaches Turan and asks which house he belongs to. Turan is afraid that he cannot say, or rather, it would be more accurate to say that he doesn't know what to say. He was born of a commoner mother, and he does not know who his father is. Asus wonders why he never told him something like that, but Turan doesn't feel it is something worth boasting about. However, his mother understands the situation and agrees. Since he saved her child, she, the head of Berg, shall see to it that he is handsomely rewarded. It is difficult to offer him a room here, but she will arrange for him to stay at the finest inn in the city. Asus asks what she's talking about. They should at least host him at home for such help, right? His mother agrees that normally she would accept, but they have an important guest staying with them now. Regardless of the circumstances, it's difficult to bring in a stranger of unknown origin, and she hopes that he understands. Suddenly, a voice rings out, telling her that she needn't worry, for surely the person who saved Asus wouldn't suddenly dare to try to assassinate her. They all turn their heads and see Maisa standing near a wall. Asus asks what she is doing here all of a sudden, and Turan looks at her. This woman is the Princess of Arabian, though a corpse might be a more fitting description for her current state. She looks like she's about to fizzle away. Asus's mother explains that she was nearly assassinated by Zahar's vermin, so she came to hide here. Asus himself is surprised by an assassination attempt at the main house. With how fortified that place is, how could it be? Maisa explains that there's probably an insider. The main house doesn't just have one or two people with questionable loyalties after all. Anyway, she is tired, so she will retire to her room. They should all have a good evening. With this in mind, the house head tells one of the maids to show Turan to the second best guest room in the house. He deserves as much after all. Turan rests for the night and wakes up early in the morning. The sun shining in the window of the room. Turan gets out of bed and begins walking around, analyzing the lights of this place. Asus seems to be awake too, noting that he is early. But what is he doing alone in the hallway? Turan points at one of the lights and notes that he finds them interesting. Asus notes that they are just a bunch of magic lanterns. He makes them every now and then. If he wants one, there are tons of them in the storage. Turan notes that he isn't that interested, but suddenly, a mighty lightning strike appears behind him, making him turn to the window. Asus explains that Maisa is practicing magic. She is always extremely diligent. Turan asks if this is Arabian bloodline magic, and Asus confirms it's Storm bloodline. He has never hated his own bloodline, but he will admit he is a little jealous of her. It's like she is becoming some sort of demigod. Turan is naturally curious. He wonders how strong the next Arabian leader is. Asus asks if he wishes to take a look, and Turan admits he is curious, but he doesn't think it's a good idea for a suspicious outsider like him to approach. Asus tells him it doesn't matter. He is not an assassin after all, and he can vouch for him, right? If he's honest, he is also curious about who's stronger between him and Maisa. Turan is beginning to think that's the real reason he brought him here, and Asus agrees that if he is truthful, there is some grudge he has been holding on to for a few years now. He wants to see Maisa's frustrated face at least once in this life. As she walks through the estate, Asus calls for her. She turns around, recognizing Asus. But who is that beside him? Turan introduces himself, and now she remembers she heard his name when they first met. So what brings the two of them here? Suddenly, Asus explains that they watched her practice magic, so they thought they would join in. Didn't they used to do that in the past? Maisa remembers as such. He was storming out, crying, after she learned in 2 tries what he couldn't in a week. Turan can tell, but left apologizing for doing so. Asus can't believe he's being mocked from 2 sides. Anyway, Among the people he's met, Turan also has a magic talent that is second to none, so how about the two have a duel? She suddenly looks at Turan and lets a bunch of her mana strike down from the sky, shaping the entire hemisphere around her to Turan. He can immediately feel the pressure and the violation of his personal space, of his own mana, and by the end, he can barely stand up. Maisa apologizes for saying something like this, but she doesn't think he is a match for her at all. In fact, Asus wasn't really trying to initiate an actual duel. In terms of magic power, nobody is a match for her. What's truly amazing about him is how fast he learns to run the magic properly, like he's never seen before. Even she cannot compare to that, right? Maisa will indulge him if he's praising him so much. She wants to see what he can do too. Turan suggests each of them try a spell that the other likely doesn't know, and whoever casts it first wins. Asus finds it a grand idea, but will she accept? Maisa does so. She heard that he doesn't even know his own bloodline magic, right? Since it wouldn't be fair if she used her innate magic. They will leave that out. She goes first, tapping her foot on the ground, and suddenly, a sprout cracks out of the concrete before thrashing all around them and grabbing Asus, holding him into the air. This is a plant creation and manipulation magic thing. Asus continues to wiggle, noting that he is getting dizzy, but Maisa tells him to stay like that for a bit, as it's pretty fun. Turan looks at the magic, then puts his hand on the ground. Fire magic is just manifesting the phenomenon of burning, and water magic is simply extracting invisible moisture that's throughout the air. These vines should be the same deal. He needs to make the seeds planted in the ground grow in an instant, so it's not creation, it's basically growth. Sure enough, he is able to do the same, although his tendrils are much bluer. Maisa guesses he told it to grow, so he figured out what this magic really was right away. Has he seen it before? Turan denies it. It was his first time. Maisa lets him go down rather roughly and hates to admit it, but for once, this guy might actually be right. Now it's his turn to set the challenge. She really wants to see what he's got. Turan thinks that using Zahar's bloodline magic here would be suicide, but then an idea comes to mind. From out of one of the bushes, he controls a rat, which comes towards him. Maisa asks if this is it, but as Turan picks up the rat, he notes that this is just the ingredient. He begins to focus his mana on the rat, and sips away its life force completely, making it decay in just a few short seconds. He asks her to go ahead, and Maisa simply nods her head. She beckons another rat toward her and grabs it, trying to do the exact same thing that he did, but it's extremely difficult. She doesn't even know how he did it. That's no ordinary spell. Asus wonders why he used that kind of magic. It's pretty gross, but Turan notes that it is just the first thing that popped up in his head. He suspected as much, but could it be that even a famous family like Arabian does not know about this technique? Asus tells Maisa that it's not really working, is it? Should they give the win to Turan then? She tells him to shut up and let her concentrate. Does he really think she can't pull something like this off? She begins to do so, thinking that, when using magic causality, it is an extremely complex factor. If the phenomenon one wants to produce is something natural, and if the users clearly understand the cause of the magic effect, and the amount of mana used matches the phenomenon, then among these, the ability to perceive the phenomenon's cause is a key factor that influences both the success rate and mana consumption. One way to compensate for the lack of causality when casting magic spells is to pour in a ton of mana, making up for the inefficiency with sheer brute force. That is what Maisa is doing now. She's demanding the rat's decay while it still lives, and it begins to do so much roughly, and with lesser finesse than Turan, but she did it. She is out of breath, however, and as she holds the rat up to them, she immediately falls to the ground afterwards. Asus immediately becomes worried, and tells her to open her eyes, but Turan doesn't understand why she fainted. Did she use too much mana? People don't usually faint just from running out of breath. At most, she'd be exhausted, barely able to keep herself upright, but not fall. However, seeing her skeletal hands, he gets why. He picks her up and asks if there's any healer with a healing bloodline here, which Asus denies. He tells him to bring water and some salt to her room, and then send for the adults too, as she will recover in some time. Turan is shocked at how light she is. He is not sure if he's carrying a person or a lamb. She's burned through all of the mana she needed just to barely hold her body upright, when she shouldn't have been able to stand at all with her current body. Maisa eventually wakes up with Asus's mother immediately by her side, asking if she is awake. Asus told her she suddenly collapsed while practicing magic with the guest. Is that true? Maisa doesn't answer at first, and the family head asks if that man did anything to her. For now, they will keep a close eye on things, so she shouldn't worry. Maisa denies it adamantly. It's not his fault. It was just a small mistake on her part, so they should just leave her, as her head is already starting to hurt. The family head reluctantly agrees that she made some soup. She knows she doesn't eat because of her magic, but she should think of her health too. She will leave it here, so she should at least try it, and eat a little. With that, they leave, and Maisa reluctantly tries to eat. But as soon as the food touches her tongue, the visions immediately crawl back, corpses begging her to save them, as if anyone can do it. It's her. She drops the bowl of soup on the ground roughly, shattering it, and clenches the bedding before clutching her head in both of her arms, not knowing what to do anymore. If she keeps going on like this, surely in just a few months she will die. Turan is being held in the temple of the crippled goddess, which is underground, beneath the Berg family residence. The man who was assigned to hold him explains that both the walls and doors are solid. There's not a single crack, as if they've been hardened over centuries like trained muscle. He should forget about trying to break out. This is Karam Burke. Turan understands, but he wasn't even thinking about escaping anyway. But Burke emphasizes that it's solid, like extremely solid, snake solid. Turan wonders if he's bragging or something, but then Burke just begins swinging his sword around, confusing Turan. What's he doing? Burke notes that he's just training, and continues doing his movements, which are precise, surprising Turan. He barely moved. Every movement was the minimum setup for the next burst of strength. Is this the efficiency of a truly trained body? He continues watching, but Burke then notices he is staring, which makes Turan ask if he got in the way. Burke denies as such, but what did he see in those movements just now? Turan is a bit confused that he got in his personal space, and notes that he thought it was rather incredible. Burke understands most nobles see martial arts as beneath them since it's far easier to attack from a distance with magic. That is only because their bodies are weak, because their minds cannot control their bodies. They rely on cheap tricks instead. Turan explains that unless one's got a combat-specialized bloodline like the Hercules line, it just makes more sense to focus on magical power, right? But sooner or later trials come one's way, where they are forced to face things whether they like it or not. Hearing this, Burke hands him the blade, telling him to take it. Didn't they lock him up because he thought he was suspicious? Is he sure he wants him to have a weapon? Burke tells him it doesn't matter. It's just a piece of iron. Only when wielded by the right person does it truly become a sword. With his weak body right now, he couldn't cut him even if he tried. Turan wonders what he is supposed to do with a sword, but Burke sees him figuring it out, actually manifesting magic alongside wielding it. However, upon seeing him pour mana into the blade, Burke screams at him that this is not it. He should not pour mana into it. He begins instructing him, telling him to put more weight in his legs, that his elbow is rising too much, and at this rate, he'll be pierced through. He should also raise his arm and not set his own limit. He makes him do repetitions, 10 of each, and not stop his breathing at all. He will breathe with his muscles. However, he can admit that this is a pretty fine vessel. If possible, he should make time to rig it dry. Mana is a mere parlor trick to him. Wizards mistakenly assume their physical abilities are guaranteed, but that's only the minimum function their bodies possess. A properly trained body tears through the battlefield without the need for mana, so he needs to understand the difference. Suddenly, though, the doors open and the head of the family comes inside, bowing her head slightly, telling Turan to pardon them, as they have done something unforgivable to a benefactor. Turan guesses that this means the young lady is unharmed. He is the one who should apologize. As a guest, his conduct was pretty inappropriate. The head of the family also notes that Maisa wanted to give him a proper apology too. Would he happen to have some time? After going to her room, Maisa notes that this is pretty troublesome. He heard he was trapped in the temple because of her. She apologizes for causing such a commotion. Turan notes that it was necessary. He is just glad that she is safe. Maisa nods and asks him about the magic from yesterday, the one that makes animals rot. Is that perhaps some undisclosed bloodline magic? That mana consumption was absurd. Did he lie? Turan denies ever lying. If one understands the principle, they should be able to use it easily as well. Maisa guesses this means he will not teach it for free, but if he does not reveal the method, there is no proof that it is not bloodline magic, right? Turan notes that he doesn't particularly mind whether he wins or not, but Maisa wonders what he means. If this ends like this, how would she look? Then how about this? If he tells her the secret of that magic, she will teach him one of the Arabian secret arts in return. Turan has no reason to turn this offer down, and begins explaining about the bio-enhanced magic and the microorganisms. Maisa now understands that efficiency was abysmal because she did not know things like that. That is really irritating. It is her loss after all. She succeeded in the end, but it was brute force to consider that part of the wager. Maisa notes that that's not right. When discussing magic skills, they do not include the amount of mana recklessly poured out. Also, she wants him to tell Aziz that this was a draw. She doesn't want to see that guy get cocky about winning or something. Now he must receive proper compensation. She gets a brush and begins brushing her hair, which begins to stand up on end. As he can see, when objects rub like this, they attract each other. Before she can answer, Turan does so for her. It's static electricity, right? She's surprised that he knew. This alone is one of the quite profound secret arts. Well, she'll have to think a bit more about how to repay him, but until sufficient compensation comes, how about they train together from now on? This is just to repay her debt to him, not because she particularly needs it or anything. Turan agrees. They will start tomorrow then, and meet in the garden in the evenings. Turan joins the family at the dinner table, and the head notes that this is not much, but he should eat his fill. Aziz wonders why they prepare so lavishly. He's never seen things like this even on his birthday. Anyone who sees this would think the Lord of Arabian himself would visit. The head tells him to shut up, and Turan notes that this is in no way an ordinary meal, but he will not say anything. The head wishes to continue their talk from earlier. His son promised a powerful magical tool as the price of his own life, right? Turan confirms as such, and the head asks if he has anything specific in mind. Turan says that he would like something that aids in defense. It is easy to cause harm with magic, but protecting is difficult. If possible, it should be something that's able to protect from surprise attacks. The head notes that, since she has made similar items in the past, it should not be difficult, but they won't have anything ready immediately. Aziz wonders if he can make it with them, but his brother rejects him. Is he thinking of dragging their house's honor through the mud? He will make it. He just finished a commission from the main house recently, so he has time. The head asks how he intends to make it, and the brother explains that, for defense against surprise attacks, something to carry at all times would be best. He will embed mana into jewelry, like rings, earrings, and such, to create a function that draws out a guardian bloodline's defensive power, so it should be ready in about 1 month. The head notes that nothing is more unseemly than apparently bragging about their own child, but Mello here is already a skilled wizard not far behind him. In essence, it means a magic tool made by the head wizard of the house of the enchantress bloodline. Turan appreciates it, but is this not a bit excessive? The head notes that if this is excessive, it would mean her son's life is not worth that much, so she will not skip out on any expense. Then, for the next month, he may stay as a guest. He should make himself at home and live comfortably. As they walk through the streets, Aziz tells him that it seems his mother has taken quite a liking to him. Actually, he spoke with her before bed yesterday and talked more about him. His magic talent doesn't fall far behind Misa's, and on top of that, he never neglects training. Originally, the mother wanted to stop looking down on him by thinking he's just a wandering noble without proper backing. Turan notes that it sounds like trying to recruit him. Aziz agrees. She gives generously, then puts one in debt, then introduces a pretty young lady to him. That's how she tempts people. In fact, there are several adults in the house who join that way, but he shouldn't worry too much. The magic tool is just something nice to buy his favor. He won't be forced to marry, even if he wants the magic tool. He also wonders if he has anything planned for the day, and Turan explains that he has training with Misa in the evening, but since it's in the evening, Aziz notes that there's still plenty of time. He should patrol with him instead, as Zavili may not be the capital, but there's still plenty to enjoy. Surely he wasn't planning to hold up in a corner training on a day like this. Turan confirms that he was, but Aziz just drags him away, noting that life is too short not to enjoy. They go to all sorts of places, casinos, bars, through the markets, but then Turan sees something, a poster which seems very similar to Keorn. They go to a play of his deeds. It was the year 2195 when the warriors of Arabian ventured into that demon desert, and there was a knight named Keorn. Keorn defeated the enemy with God's help after a hard-fought battle. They all clap as it ends, and Aziz wonders if it was worth watching. Turan notes that it was pretty good, but thinking about Keorn's claim that he was just an ordinary knight makes him think that his humility really is unmatched. Someday, when he meets Keorn, he must ask if that story really is true. Turan retires to his bed and is met with Berg's face, who is looking down at him pretty adamantly. He asks if his body rested well, and Turan confirms as such. But what brings him here? Berg notes that he noticed yesterday how good his vessel is, so it's toughening time. He should follow him. Turan asks if they are going to train, and Berg notes that the body doesn't grow stronger by lying around when being tempered. Does he not want to? Turan agrees to go as he will gain more than just playing around. Aziz enters the room, having heard that there was a really fantastic performance today, but then he is met with Berg, who is apparently his uncle. He explains that they are headed to training, and he must also temper that weak body of his. Will he come? Aziz immediately denies, sheepishly making up an excuse about having just come back, and immediately runs away, making Turan wonder why he is acting like that. However, after a few minutes, he realizes why. Berg just put a bunch of weight on top of him. and is making him do half push-ups, telling him that his mind is being dominated by his body's weakness. After one more push-up, Berg tells him that this is enough. With Turan almost being dead, Berg asks if this is tiring, and Turan very much agrees. Berg notes that he is at least a wizard, so doing this once is enough. He should count himself fortunate. Turan wonders if it's different if one is not a wizard, and Berg confirms as such. An ordinary body weakens again over time, even after being tempered once. He needs constant trials to maintain it, but wizards have mana, maintaining their bodies in optimal condition, so once forged into steel, it does not weaken. Well, he must be fully rested by now, right? He knows his body does not lie. He has rested plenty, so now he will teach him weaponry and combat. The days in this house were indeed fulfilling. Turan wakes up early and trains with Berg. In the evening, he returned to the mansion to repeat magic training with Maisa, and before he knew it, 3 weeks had passed. He continues training, having missed again, and Maisa notes that he is struggling more than she expected. Turan guesses that it's because he's not an Arabian. Maisa notes that it's pretty hard for her to help as well. She has never thought of aiming magic this lightly. Doesn't it just hit if he shoots it? Suddenly, a servant from the main house arrives, calling for Lady Maisa, but wonders who this man is. Maisa puts herself in front of Turan and tells him that this is none of his business. What brings him here? She specifically told the main house that nobody should approach her while she is recovering. The servant explains that the patriarch has summoned her, and she asks why. He should answer quickly. If it is a trivial reason, he should be prepared to be punished. The servant explains that the dark elves have been rampaging extensively in the south. 3 cities have already fallen, and they say they will assemble an expedition force to deal with it. Turan wondered when this was going to escalate, but it seems that the time is now. Maisa understands and tells the servant to tell everyone that she will be ready soon. Maisa notes that she should go take a look, and come to think of it, about that creepy corruption magic. She should repay her debt to him. She thinks about it for a little while, and asks Turan if he knows that electricity flows through the human body. Turan wonders if it is so, and she guesses he had no reason to know. This is an Arabian secret teaching. Then wouldn't it be fair to call the debt settled if she teaches this properly? It will definitely be of great help to Turan. So Maisa begins explaining. When a person sees or feels something, a tiny electrical signal is sent to the brain. If one sees with their eyes, signals go from their eyes to their brain. If they smell, it will go from their nose to the brain. Through this electricity, the brain understands the sensation and sends electrical signals back throughout the body to command movement. Turan doesn't really understand, but either way, there certainly must be a reason. The library's materials were the same at first. Perhaps this is part of nature laws that Arabian has passed down. Maisa asks what he thinks would happen if one accelerates this electricity with magic, and Turan guesses the speed at which they perceive and react will become faster. She confirms as much, but honestly, he should be a scholar instead of doing something like this, where she will demonstrate right away. She is curious at how quickly he'll learn. After instructing him a bit more, Turan begins to practice too. He feels the minute electricity that is flowing through his entire body. If he makes the lightning transmitted to the pathway even faster, then he can feel it. His eyes are awakened with power, and he can even see the minute flaps of a butterfly right in front of him. It's like the world has stopped, or almost stopped, but then he is hit with a massive headache. Maisa scoffs, as it seems that he has succeeded. That's just what happens when one uses large amounts of mana recklessly. He'll probably have a headache and find it hard to adjust at first, but once he gets used to it, he'll be able to maintain it for quite some time. Turan believes that this is far too much compared to what he has given, but Maisa tells him that this is just an investment, since he does seem to have a lot of talent. Later, if he comes to know greater magic, she will have to collect not only what she gave him, but everything he owes her. With that, she flies away, leaving Turan to wonder what the hell she even meant. The next day, in Morgan City, in the Darkkine Plains, everyone cheers as the expedition begins parading, with Aziz noting that this is a deployment ceremony against the Dark Elves, but it also looks like a triumphal march or something. They are pretty enthusiastic. They also see Maisa, who is atop a horse in some armor, and he waves, but his father tells him that as a noble, he should maintain his dignity. Suddenly though, someone screams that a househead is entering, and the man does not march on a horse, but simply walks. Turan finally sees the current head of House Arabian, Badal Arabian. Turan notes that his complexion seems to be quite poor. Could he be in ill health perhaps? Aziz notes that he heard rumors that, long ago, he fought with Zahar's househead and suffered grave injuries, but it was really long ago. Perhaps it's just his age. Suddenly Badal puts his hand up, and dark looming thunderclouds begin to cover the sky. He tells everyone to trust that he is behind them and to advance. This is the strength of Arabian. He makes the thunderclouds activate, thundering the entire sky, and everyone cheers. Turan looks more analytically, so this is the strength of Arabian. Even with the body in poor condition, he is already at the pinnacle of magic that can overturn the earth. Someday, he too will be like that. He does not say this with hope, but with certainty. After getting back to the main house, Mello gives Turan the magical tool. Even just carrying it increases his physical durability slightly, and when he channels mana into it, the degree increases further. Ultimately, it will reach a level similar to a guardian bloodline noble likely, but its mana consumption is severe too, so it's best not to maintain it for long. Turan notes that this is a truly remarkable treasure, and Mello agrees. An item of this caliber is rare even among great houses. It's an unusually well-made piece. The head of the family approaches Turan and asks if he has given any thought to formally joining their house. Turan thanks her for the offer once again, but he fears it may be difficult. She expected as much. Aziz told her that he was a person with much to do who cannot stay in one place. He would forgive her for asking again. Turan bows his head, noting that he will not forget the treatment he has received here. Aziz and the Berg family will be his friends forever. After getting accommodation, he is met by Aziz and Berg. Berg hands him what seems to be a knife, a magical tool. It has no extraordinary function or anything, but it is durable and sharp. Turan bows his head, thanking him, and calls him a teacher, which seems to please Berg, and he walks away. Aziz too puts a cloak over him, and Turan asks what this is. Aziz notes that he did say previously that he envied his clothes. They do not get easily soiled, and slight tears repair themselves too. There are shirts and pants too. He is a good friend after all, not merely because he saved his life, but because spending time with him and seeing how he lives has given him much to think about. So then, where does he plan to head next? Turan guesses that it's east, and Aziz understands. Carmine? He has been there himself. If he can't afford it, he should not take a ship. The waves are truly the worst. Wine glasses dance in them too. Turan thinks that beyond those waves lies Zahar's land, the Anreal Desert, but he cannot tell him that. Aziz notes that a stubborn fellow like him won't starve to death wherever he goes anyway, so he should come back safely and earn his keep with that cloak, right? With that, he sets off on the main road, thinking that he is alone once again. Now he should do some running. He begins running extremely fast, to the point that the human eye cannot catch him, and he travels through places that would take people hours to get to in mere minutes, eventually stopping at a mountainside. He also smells smoke and campfire, but it is more repulsive, the smell of burning animal flesh. Suddenly, he happens upon a small hidden village that is completely in ruins. People are tied to posts left for the maggots to eat. He wonders if this was a bandit attack. The dark elves should not have come this far. He also feels something, a sense of a pulse of someone. He goes down to the house where he feels it and pulls the cellar doors open, seeing it's a little girl who immediately screams upon seeing him. Turan calms her down, telling her that he is no enemy. He just came to help. She asks if he really is friendly, and Turan confirms as such. Could she tell him about what happened here? The girl tries to tell him that something happened with a wizard, but then falls unconscious. Turan can see that her condition is not critical. She must be exhausted from being locked in the basement for so long. For now, he will take her to safety. However, as soon as he gets out of the house, people are circling him. A bunch of mages, it seems, with one of them, a girl with tan skin, telling him to kneel, calling him a murderer of the highest order. She wonders if just tying up the corpses was not enough. Is he trying to kidnap a child too? Another next to her, who is shaking, tells him not to move any further. If he even twitches a little, he will do something. Turan tries to tell them that this is a misunderstanding, but the guy just lets the fire arrow go, and it explodes right into Turan. The girl asks Gil if he's an idiot. There was a child there, and he apologizes. It was an accident. He got too nervous. However, Turan seems to be safe and sound, with only the charm on his hand being visible. Although he did not expect to use the protection tool right after coming out, they are surprised to see that he blocked magic with just his body, it seemed like, and the girl wonders what kind of defensive magic that was. Is it a bloodline ability? Turan, now that he has their attention, tells them that he did not attack this village. He's saying it again. This is just a misunderstanding. However, if they attack again, he will have to retaliate. The woman looks at the girl in his hands and puts her bow down, thinking that there is no reason to stay here after causing such a tragedy and sparing only one child. She is Bison. He introduces himself, and Bison notes that, even if the circumstantial evidence says so, how can they trust him? Turan notes that they can talk directly to the child once she wakes up. She seemed to have actually seen the real culprit. Bison is shocked. Has she actually seen the burner? Turan asks what the burner is, and Bison is surprised he doesn't know. He is the deranged wizard who committed this atrocity. For the past few months, they've been periodically attacking remote villages, binding people, and burning them to death. Since there are no survivors, they don't even know their gender. All they know about them is that they are called the Burner. After the child wakes up, she begins explaining. The person had a red cloak and a face with facial hair. He looked as rough as a woodcutter. Seeing that she really isn't lying, Bison looks back at Turan and bows her head. They were rude in their haste. It was clearly a mistake to point their weapons at him. Turan notes that at least they were concerned for the child's safety, so they are good on that. But did they come to catch the Burner? Bison confirms as such. Since there was someone near a freshly burned place, she thought they'd finally caught them this time, but it turned out like this. Still, now that they have a description of the culprit, they should be able to catch them soon. They have a natural-born pursuer among them. Turan wonders if she is from House Zahar. What is she doing in such a place though? Bison immediately puts her hands out. She is a Carmine, Bison Carmine. She came from Avisha. These are her friends who are the house's vassals. This person, Asha, is a descendant of the generation of their ancestors, who mixed Zahar noble blood. Their bloodline manifested weakly, so they are skilled in search magic but lack talent in concealment. Her house calls them the primordial bloodline. That aside though, she has one request. Could he help them in hunting down the Burner? She will be giving him the bounty on him, or she could also yield a share of her mana. After all, what she needs is to build a reputation. Turan asks if they even know how strong the Burner is, and Bison guesses that he is likely a noble-level wizard. Among the villages they attacked, some were defended by multiple knights, and they were all killed. Turan understands that to kill multiple knights like that, for him right now, it might be the opponent he needs. The low-rank monsters in the wild aren't enough to help him grow anymore, so he agrees. They go to another village to give the child to someone else. Turan hands it to a pretty, honest-looking carpenter, telling him that he has given him enough money to take care of this child until she grows up. However, he will come back to check in a few years. Sensing the seriousness in his voice, the carpenter flinches lightly and promises that she will be taken care of. They go back to the burning village, and Asha uses her bloodline ability. As they begin walking, with her noting that they need to look around a bit more, they begin looking around the area, seeing the destroyed trees and such. Asha continues putting her nose to the ground, with Turan asking what exactly she is looking for right now. Asha explains that they first found the footprints of an adult male, and by the time it led to the main road, they picked up the smell of ash. If he had not changed clothes, ash would have clung to him. Turan thinks that she is quite a professional, because before she couldn't find him, because she didn't even know the gender, huh? However, that's when Asha screams that she found him, and begins running towards the spot. Eventually, they end up at a cave entrance, with Bison telling Turan that she should stay with her at the front. The rest will follow behind. Bison creates a small light orb, and they begin walking through the cave, with Bison asking Asha if there is someone inside. She confirms that there is, only one person. They walk further and further and end up in what seems to be a pretty open space, with someone standing in the middle with a red cloak. He asks what brings them to such a remote place. Turan wonders if this is the Burner, and Asha confirms as such, saying that she can smell it on him. Bison readies her bow, noting that he likely is, but she will ask, is he the one who has been capturing and burning villagers from the nearby towns? The Burner says that he doesn't quite understand, but then immediately unleashes his magic, covering the entire area in fire and pushing everyone back. But Turan uses the magical tool to cover himself and Bison, who unleashes arrows straight into his knee, ending his life of adventuring. The Burner immediately puts his hand to the ground and begins summoning two rock-like hands above them, aiming to crush them. Turan then dodges before getting out his sling and unleashing a gigantic attack right before the Burner can attack again, taking out his hand. Turan does not stop there, however, as he snaps his fingers, unleashing a devastating electric strike into the Burner, causing his eyes to roll back in his head and pass out. Bison asks if he defeated him, and Turan guesses so. He will handle this side, so they should look after the others. Turan drops a bunch of seeds to the ground, which begin growing and capture the Burner, sealing his legs and arms. He taps the Burner on the head, telling him to wake up, and he begins doing so, but also begins using mana. Turan puts the knife to his throat, telling him to stop. If he uses mana right now, he will not hesitate to kill him. The Burner asks who the hell they are, and how the hell they found this place. Turan notes that they have their ways. So he is the Burner, isn't he? The man says nothing, and Turan puts the knife in his other leg, telling him to answer quickly. Why is a wandering noble burning the villages of this area to death? The Burner explains that God told him about it. that if he burns the souls and flesh of those laden with their sins, he can draw closer to God. God taught him and the others the secret way to gain bloodline power too. Just a few more times of burning humans to death, and he will gain the pyromaniac's bloodline fully. Bison wonders if he is insane to try and gain an inborn bloodline that way, by committing mass murder for such a deranged reason. Turan, however, remembers something he was told, that even ordinary people can gain power by killing monsters. He has already seen several wizards do it. What he is saying now are not just the ravings of a madman. Perhaps he has come to know a secret of this world that was never meant to be found. After they are done with him, Turan slits his throat. Gil almost throws up, noting that killing someone who is tied up and unable to resist feels like slaughtering livestock. Bison tells him to stop feeling sympathetic. They all could have died here if something went wrong. Besides, when they think about how many people this bastard has killed, dragging him away alive and making him suffer even more wouldn't have been enough. Turan grabs a nearby book and begins reading it, seeing that it's a map. This should be more than enough evidence that he is the burner. However, he sees that there is also a combination of formulas he has never seen before in his life. Did that voice claiming to be God tell him this too? Bison turns to Turan and notes that they should absorb it. With this, they all get their share as much as they can anyway. After returning to the city, one of the hunters congratulates Bison to think that she would catch the burner. A new star has risen in House Carmine, it seems. Bison notes that she is flattered and accepts the reward. After they begin sharing it, she explains that they plan to travel around a bit more while hunting monsters. What about him? Turan notes that he is planning to head straight to Abacia, and Bison understands that, as she mentioned yesterday about what that guy told them. Turan notes that he wouldn't go around talking about it to everyone. Whether it is true or not, it would cause great chaos. She agrees, and with that, they depart. Turan thinks that there is no need for him to mention that there isn't any definitive proof yet, right? He begins walking the desert and thinks that it is pretty humid. Even creating a flame is a little hard. The firepower is decreased, and the mana consumption increased. It will be tricky to handle fire magic here. On the other hand, it is easier to use water magic, which means that he has finally arrived at Abacia. The two sailors are talking, one noting that they are planning to sail tomorrow. They have to go to that dreadful Enril desert again. Those merfolk along the route keep throwing harpoons at them, and last time the bottom of the ship ended up looking like some kind of honeycomb. Another wonders if it really is that bad. And those damn pirates too. The main shipman notes that at this rate, they will be paying their funeral expenses instead of sailors' wages. They are in desperate need of a skilled knight. Suddenly, Turan approaches and asks if they are heading to the Enril desert. The man confirms as such. They are leaving tomorrow, but their ship is no cruise liner. They don't even have enough room for extra cargo. Taking one more person means leaving behind a barrel of booze, and that goes against his principles. Turan puts a hand on his cup and freezes it entirely, with everyone rising up, almost wanting to bow their heads, wondering what such a great knight is doing in such a humble place. Turan tells them to speak comfortably. He is the one asking to be hired here. The sailor asks what brings him to this place, and Turan explains that he would like to board a ship heading to the Enril desert. He is here as an employee, not a passenger. If pirates or merfolk attack, he will fend them off. He will use that as payment for his passage. The sailor notes that he is likely overqualified, but their ship is in pretty poor condition. He should forget about a measly salary. They don't have the means to provide a room befitting of a knight's status. Turan notes that he doesn't care about the pay or conditions. His goal is simply to get to the Enril desert anyway. The sailor gets up and notes that it is settled. Then he will join them at once. As they set sail, somewhere else, somewhere in the south where the dark elves are attacking, someone from the expedition force is fighting for his life, fending off one dark elf after another, but it is pretty clear that he is being overwhelmed. At this rate, there will be no saving him. Suddenly, though, the dark elves around him are struck by lightning, with none other than Maisa having saved him, and she tells him to rejoin the unit. After he agrees, someone else comes behind her, asking if she is hurt anywhere. This is the Arabian Subjugation Force Vice Captain, Kadram Arabian. It's her uncle. She says that she's fine, and Kadram tells her not to push herself too hard, because she is far more precious than the lives of a knight or two. She says it's nothing. More importantly, how is the battle going? Kadram explains that it's not bad. At this rate, this area will be reclaimed pretty soon, though they haven't found the tunnels just yet. Maisa tells him to tell her when he has found them, as she will go there herself. As she flies off, Kadram scoffs. What an insolent child. His brother raised that child far too recklessly. She'll end up just like her mother and younger brother at this rate. The fool. As they continue sailing, Turan looks on at the sea. Even if he arrives in the land of Zahar, He is at a loss as to how he will find clues about his family, without even knowing what his father's status is. There is no telling what might happen if he just barges into Zahar. The only clues he has are a few heirlooms and a portrait of his mother's face. He wonders how long it will take to find information with just that. The sailor captain from before says that if he keeps staring at the sea like that, he will burn a hole in the seabed. What's got him so deep in thought? Turan notes that he was just thinking about how vast the ocean is, and the captain agrees. It is vast. He heard landfolk get nauseous just by looking at that vastness. Is he handling seasickness all right? Turan notes he is fine, and the captain puts a hand over his shoulder. As he heard, he's even learning seafaring from their boatswain, a noble, a sir knight. Learning everything from tying ropes to handling the sails is pretty interesting. He seems quite excited to teach him too. Turan just thought it would be good for him to have such knowledge, and it's more interesting than he thought. Someone screams that it's mealtime, and the captain agrees. They should eat before they work. They go to the dining hall, and the food seems pretty simple. One of the men notes that it is not as good as the food on land, but it's a relief that they did not leave out the pickled cabbage, because if it weren't for this, they would have all died of gum disease long ago. It is a disease where one's gums bleed, and they die, but it gets better with sour food. Fruit spoils far too quickly, so pickled cabbage is the best, though it does taste pretty bad. Turan notes that this is pretty fascinating. How did he come to know such a thing? The cook notes that he is sure someone figured it out at some point, and it probably just spread. He heard that before that was discovered, people used to eat raw merfolk meat. Suddenly, though, the watchman notes that there's a ship at 2 o'clock ahead, a medium-sized vessel. He does not know if they are pirates, but there's no house crest flying on it. The cook has a feeling that they are pirates. It's such a nice day without any rain. Things were going too smoothly. Everyone prepares for battle. The cook asks the captain what they should do. Should they lose them? They're a bit faster, so if they chase them long enough, they might get caught. If the wind is in their favor, though, they could probably dock at the nearby island before they catch them. The captain notes they have someone powerful on their side, but he asks if he will be all right. Turan notes that if there are no knights or nobles inside, it shouldn't be a problem. The captain agrees and tells the man to turn the ship. They do so, and the pirates immediately pull alongside, telling them to stop the ship, or they will kill them. Turan wonders if they would really spare them if they surrender, but the cook notes that if throwing them in the sea after cutting off their legs counts, then sure, Turan expected something as such, and jumps from his ship to the other, surprising the pirates. They all immediately move in to kill him, but using the water, Turan makes a bunch of crystal darts and begins shooting them through the pirates. If he is against these kinds of evil people, there is no need for him to hold back, isn't it? The rest of the pirates freeze as they see the carnage in front of them, but one of them tells him not to be scared. If they do not kill him, they are the ones who will be dying anyway. With this, they are desperately charging towards him, but Turan isn't the least bit impressed. He pulls out a bunch more water from the sea and crafts a sword immediately, cutting off one of the pirates' heads, blocking 2 other strikes, killing the 2 that struck, and dodging a spear strike and a knife attack from behind. Someone else tries to kill him with a mace, but he dodges and breaks the form of his own blade, letting it fly like a whip that cuts through everything. One guy, who was not dead yet, immediately climbs onto him, aiming to kill him with a knife, but Turan does not seem to dodge at all, even as 2 other pirates charge in with their blades. The man who climbed onto him is shocked to see that he cannot pierce his skin, and neither can his mates. With this, Turan slaughters them all. He weaves through them left and right, leaving only behind their screams, a shower of blood, and their lifeless bodies all around the deck. The ones from the ship hook their bars to this one, and the captain arrives, noting that he really wiped them all out. Does it happen to work as a cleaner on the side? If he cleans up this neatly, their crew won't have anything left to do. Everyone cheers because honestly, they really did not want to fight, with one of the sailors wondering if he is not going to see the physician first. Turan notes that there is no need to worry. He is not hurt anywhere at all. This is all the pirates' blood after all. They stay like this for a bit, ship in ship, sailing away, and the captain retreats with Turan to his quarters, noting that he has searched every nook and cranny of this guy's ship. It turns out that ship was a merchant vessel that went missing in Abacia a few years ago actually. It seemed the pirates captured it, gave it a new coat of paint, and basically claimed it as their own. It's just like those lowlifes to do that. What does he plan to do? Since he finished the fight by himself, the ownership of that item belongs entirely to him. He is basically a new ship owner. Turan wonders what is usually done in this case, and the captain notes that there are several ways. He could take it back to Abacia and say that for a reward. Of course, between the paperwork and all the dealing with bureaucrats, a month or 2 will fly by. Another way is to go to the Enril Desert and sell it. However, in his opinion, it is best to just sell it at the northern sea islands along their way. That neighborhood is always desperate for ships. The rule is to sell to the one who needs it to get the highest price. But, to move a ship this size, they need to mobilize quite a few of their crewmen. It's not like he can't sell that ship all by himself anyway. If he uses people, he should pay the price. He is glad he is an understanding kind. In that case, as a service fee for his boys, if he could give them 10% of the profit. Turan asks if he could ask them to handle everything up to the sale for 20%, and the captain immediately agrees. He knows quite a few people over there, so he will make sure he gets a good price. Suddenly a crewmate comes in, noting that there's a mermaid, and the captain believes that they are being attacked, but the crewmate says that's not it. The pirates were keeping a mermaid alive under the deck. They all go to the pirate ship. The captain, having not expected such an important guest to be on board, asks Turan if he would like to go see, and he agrees. He asks if mermaids sell for a high price, and the captain agrees. If it's a pretty female mermaid, those rich lords on the mainland who have nothing but money and boredom can get enough of those mysterious things. They go absolutely crazy for them. However, upon getting there below deck, they see that it is a male merman. The captain notes that this one will go for a pittance. Those rich lords have no interest in males. Well, unless it's a legendary royal who can transform into a fish or something. The boy notes that they are all insolent. He is Armani, the 47th Prince of North Esterdale. They should show some respect. Lowly humans of land. The captain is a bit amused that he acts as royalty. Maybe this is the only way they will keep him alive and sell him, so he's just bluffing. Can he transform into a fish? A fish? The Prince Armani says that he cannot. That's because he is being restrained like this and out of water. He must enter the sea in a perfect state to be able to transform. Turan and the captain look at each other, believing that he is playing tricks to try to escape. Turan has also heard that mermaids eat humans quite often, don't they? They should kill him, since he's not worth any money either way. The captain agrees it would be a pretty big payout if what he said was true. If they believe him and release him into the sea, and he just runs away, they will just look like fools. So he should let him kill him as he prepares to do so. Armani tells him to stop, but sees that Turan has no intention. Armani notes that he has never eaten a human in his life, and he never intended to. Seeing that Turan still isn't backing down, he notes that if he spares him, he will give him treasure, which seems to grab their attention. They are the things left behind by the Freyan gods they worship. After docking on that island, the captain mentioned in the evening, the captain asks if he has concluded as his men get off the board. Turan notes that the place doesn't seem to be far from here, so he will head there and come back tonight. With that, he leaves with the mermaid prince on a pretty small boat, chaining him to himself. Armani asks if he really expects him to run away, as a prince will always keep his promises, but will he really let him go if the treasure is right there? Turan confirms as such, and begins rowing away with magic. Armani tells him not to be disappointed in him when he sees it, since by the standard of land people, it's only counted as amazing. With that, Armani leads the way, and Turan eventually happens upon a pretty sizable-looking thing, something that looks like a serpent, a gigantic one at that, a sea snake of legend, and something atop its head. Before Turan descended into the water, Armani led him to a small, secluded island. Before he docked, he gathered a bunch of water in his hand and searched for merfolk, finding none. It seems like at least he did not lead him to a merfolk stronghold. Armani walks around with Turan, noting that it was definitely somewhere around there if he remembers clearly. Eventually he finds it, which was what seemed like some kind of lake. Turan guessed it wasn't that deep, and Armani agreed it was only around 300 meters or something, which probably is not that deep for him. Turan tidied him up before leaving, with Armani wondering if he was doing this because he'd think he'd run away. If he goes down there and dies, he will starve to death. Turan undressed and told him that he should hope that does not happen for both of their sakes. With a deep breath, he descended into the water and went down further and further, his sharp eyes allowing him to see a bit. That's when he found a giant sea serpent and that person on top of his head. He opens his mouth a bit, surprised, before remembering he can't breathe underwater, and goes toward the snake's head and sees that the person there is extremely well preserved. He guesses this is one of the Thrayans. This body is intact, without even becoming a wraith. He also sees that he has something on him, something that looks strangely like a compass. After a bit, he comes out of the water with Armani, wondering if he found it, and Turan confirms as such. He also sees something strange on Armani, something that looks like mana, as he thought it. This allows him to sense the presence of living things and internal energy. He removes the chains from Armani, who certainly did not expect to be let go so easily. He thought he'd just take this and sell him off or something. Turan made a promise after all. He returned what he received. Since he guided him without deceiving him, he is simply keeping his word. Armani thanks him. He really is a kind demon. If they ever go to war with humans, he will tell his father not to touch him. Turan tells him to stop talking nonsense, and Armani jumps in the water, immediately transforming into a fish. It means that he really wasn't lying about being royalty, huh? Turan returns to the small island town. The crewmates on the captain's ship seem to be being punished with a whip by the cook, who notes that they should repeat after him, they will never be late again, and that insubordination means death. Turan wakes up wondering what this is about, and another explains that they're punishing the guys who crawled in late last night. Not only were they late, they even caused a ruckus at the harbor tavern. This is what they get for taking the captain's warning lightly. He can visually see their life force being drained away. He asks where the captain is, and the man notes that he went down to the island. He said he was going to find someone to buy the ship. It seems that he is indeed in negotiations, and Turan approaches too, asking if the deal is going well. The captain explains that he should introduce him first. This is Captain Samuel, who has agreed to buy the ship. He has lost an eye, and this man has lost a hand, so the math checks out, right? Samuel introduces himself too, and notes that they agreed on 1,000 Zahar gold coins. Turan says that it is not bad, but there is a problem as he sits down. It is inconvenient to carry around gold coins. Could he perhaps receive magical tools, or holy relics of equivalent value? Samuel notes that such items cannot be found in a poor place like this. He will have to go to Komad. It is the second city of Zahar's territory. House Durman, who rules there, is of a tamer bloodline. He should get himself a decent monster there, since he already has plenty of money. Turan thinks about it. A beast that understands speech would be useful in his journey. After they keep sailing, one of the crewmates notes that this voyage was a real treat. The pirates just turn into money bags. It is all thanks to serving a descendant of God's people, meaning the mage. Suddenly, though, the watchman notes that there are dark clouds ahead, and a storm is brewing. The calm seas immediately begin turning turbulent, and the cook tells everyone to unfurl the sails and move the cargo inside. The waves threaten to eat them whole, crashing into the ship roughly, making some people fall right into the sea. But before they can, Turan grabs all of them with his magic and puts them down, telling them to get inside as fast as possible. He unfurls the sails himself and moves the cargo in, allowing everyone to retreat inside of the ship. Naturally, it is pretty cold, and some are even shivering. Turan looks at them, asking if they are all right, and they say they are fine. The captain thanks him as well. If he hadn't furled the sails, they would have sunk. Turan wonders if they can withstand this storm, and the captain notes they have to trust the ship and the helmsman as well. Most importantly, though, his men seem to be rather cold. Turan tells everyone to gather in a circle, and the captain knows what he wants to do. Is he really going to start a fire on this narrow wooden boat? That would be dangerous. Turan promises not to let it spread, and with a tap of his fingers he creates a ball of fire that spreads throughout the entire ship, making it extremely warm. This is an extremely sophisticated magic. The captain now finally understands the instructions those overbearing old-timers used to say, until their breath ran out, that humans shall serve the wizard, and the wizard shall reign over humans yet also care for them in return. After the sail, they go to the largest city in the northern Enril Desert, Komad. With them on board, the captain notes that this is a small amount, but he should take this as his hiring fee. Turan notes that this is far too much. They were also helping each other to begin with. The captain knows that the crew all earn a little less from their proceeds of sailing the ship. If he does not accept it, God will be angry with them. Turan understands where they are coming from. Then, if they meet again, he will treat them all to a proper meal. The captain notes that it would be an honor, and the sailors all thank him and wave at him, noting that they will never forget him. With a final bow, Turan makes his way through the city, which is pretty Arabic in a sense. Using his newfound power, he sees that someone has more life force than usual, which seems to be a guard. Turan immediately asks if he is a knight of House Durman, and the guard starts to sweat as his pupils widen. He bows his head to Turan, calling him Lord. Turan introduces himself as Turan from Abasha. He wishes to see the house head. The guard immediately leads him to that place, and Turan gets a new change of clothes, with the house head noting that it suits him pretty well. He is pleased to finally meet him. He is called Durman. He looks at him a bit and sees something, but says nothing at first, only asking what his name and house are. Turan introduces himself as Turan Brahms. He is of a fallen guardian bloodline. He heard rumors and came here to buy a monster. Cal understands. He will have his daughter guide him. Turan wonders if, by any chance, he has seen someone who looks like him. Cal notes that it was nothing. He just thought he looked a bit like someone he used to know. His daughter leads him through the halls, and notes that, for someone who is a fallen noble, he seems to have quite a bit of money. Seeing him come to get a monster from House Durman and all, is it because a guardian bloodline is perfect for the mercenary life? Turan just nods, but only thinks about how Cal reacted. Who did he see in his face? His mother, his father, that curly hair, somewhat large ears, a straight mouth? He does share some features with his mother, but is it enough to remind him of her in the moment he saw him? Could it be, maybe, was the one the househead saw, his father, whose face he does not even know yet? Cal's daughter notes that they are here, at the House Durman breeding grounds. Turan sees that it is quite spacious and each room has its own habitat. It is extremely impressive. He looks at a horse and asks how much it will be. Cal's daughter notes that they raised him with quite a bit of care, so he will have to pay around 4,000 gold coins. Turan immediately considers it. That's twice his entire fortune. He was wrong to think he was rolling in money. Should he give up on getting a monster though? He can't exactly cross the desert carrying that chest of money either, so he might as well spend it. Suddenly though, he's met face to face with a falcon whose gaze is pretty burning. Turan asks about the price of this one, and Cal's daughter says it's around 1,500 coins. He thinks it's pretty cheap, although it would take all of his savings. It's quite the bargain considering its mana capacity too. He asks what its abilities are, and Cal's daughter just says it's smart and flies well, being a little anticlimactic. This is one of the more popular species around here, but it's too smart for its own good. It absolutely refuses to listen to anyone it deems dumber than itself. The falcon nods, and Turan notes that he really must be smart to understand words, even if he is a bit ugly. The falcon shakes his head at these diminishing words, and Turan has confirmed that it understands everything. Cal's daughter confirms as such. She even tried to teach it how to read, but it wouldn't learn. She doesn't know if it just doesn't want to or can't. It's a waste. It has great strength for its size, and they fed it plenty of monster meat. It would be worth so much more if it just listened. As they keep talking though, the falcon extends a claw at Turan, pointing at him basically. Turan points at himself, asking if he wants him, and wonders why. He is not that special of a person. Is there even a reason? The falcon just tilts his head, and Turan wonders if he buys him, would he be willing to learn how to read? The falcon nods, and Cal comes to bond their spirits together, with the falcon immediately perching on Turan's forearm. Cal is impressed at how well it follows him. He should take good care of it. Before Cal leaves though, he notes that he could let this pass, but does he happen to have any connection to Talus? Turan pretty obviously doesn't know what, or who that is, so Cal notes that he should forget he asked. Turan thinks about it. Talus. He thought of that person when he saw his face. He also wants to ask one thing and pulls out a drawing of his mother. Does he happen to know a woman named Vige? Cal looks at the drawing and thinks that he doesn't. If she were such a beauty, there would have been no way he would have forgotten her. Turan understands, and to test something out, since the price is paid and the deal is done, it is only natural to check if everything is in order. He grabs the falcon's talons and begins flying away with it, going quite far and wide, only returning afterwards. Cal's daughter asks how his flight was, and Turan notes that it was pretty good. It felt like he cleared his head. Cal's daughter introduces a few people to Turan, noting that he came from Carmine's side. A man asks if Carmine is close to Arabian, isn't it? Cal's daughter tells him not to associate their guests with those perils, and the man shakes hands with Turan, noting that he is Dolph Marin, of a history bloodline, as they shake hands, though Dolph clenches his hand tighter than he should. Seeing that he is showing off his strength, Dolph notes that, as expected for a guardian, he is quite sturdy. The woman next to him is not interested in this brutish show of strength. She wonders where that picky eagle is. She came here because she wanted to see him. Turan told him to fly around nearby a bit, since he must have felt stifled after practicing his writing all morning. If he'd like, he could call him over. Turan does so, telepathically, and the eagle immediately arrives, perching on his forearm. The woman is surprised to see that it's true, and tries to pet him, but the eagle immediately pecks her hand, causing her to call him a bird brain. What on earth does she lack that he is acting like this? She could raise him much better than some fallen noble. The eagle wants to rip her head off, but Turan tells it to hold it in for now at least. Dolph and what seems like his wife begin talking over dinner, noting that it's been rather noisy lately because of the dark elf tribes to the west. He even heard that the Arabian Subjugation Forces commander is that skinny Miza. The woman says she hopes she gets assassinated this time. It will be quite the spectacle if that wench dies. She is nothing but skin and bones anyway, so she will probably die on her own. Dolph agrees. She's such a hideous sight to behold. He feels sorry for whoever ends up being her husband. The woman notes that, still, those guys have it easy since they have a successor. They don't know if it will be Ram, Alma, or Purga. She wishes Thales would just make a clear decision already. Confused, Turan asks what kind of person Talus is, with Cal's daughter telling him that Talus is the househead's younger brother and the current second in command of Zahar. He is essentially the one leading the house. Lastly, she asks Turan if he has any connection with Talus, to which Turan thinks that his father may be a bigger deal than he thought. Turan goes outside with the eagle, who begins writing something in the dirt. Turan is lost in thought. He keeps thinking about househead Cal, the face he thought of when he saw him. Is that the second in command of Zahar? If he really is his father, and if he has even the slightest blemish on his name, then he could be crushed like a bug the moment that he is discovered. The Black Eagle writes that he is a Black Eagle, and also writes that he wrote it well, like Turan told him to. But Turan didn't tell him to copy that part, and it's wrong too. Anyway, has he even decided on a name yet? The Black Eagle denies it, writing as much, but Turan guesses that "not yet" is not his name, right? And the eagle confirms as such. Turan wants to know why he chose him, and the Black Eagle begins writing. He notes that he is good, and that his insides fit him perfectly. Turan guesses that it means to say, he is good. The rest is full of mistakes too. He really needs to learn a lot more, but he is getting there. Still, he also wonders, why him? Does what he meant by insides fit him perfectly refer to his bloodline, a mix of Zahar and another house? Suddenly Dolph comes, noting that he was thinking of going hunting later to stretch his legs. Would he like to tag along? Turan refuses, saying that he will be leaving today. Dolph notes that he should have at least said something. It's a real shame. He thought they were a bit closer than that. Turan remains silent. This bastard pretends to be friendly, but, in the end, he just wants to suppress him with force so he can feel superior. Dolph notes that he wants to be his guide if that's the case. He knows this area inside out. Turan refuses Dolph immediately, and Dolph backs away, making Turan even more suspicious. He will have to keep watch on him. He heads for the gates, telling the guard that he doesn't need an escort. But the guard confirms this is the househead's orders. They will escort him safely to the fortress walls. At least, Turan gets a desert guidebook and Enril's religious texts from a nearby store and begins reading a bit. The author is Britzo Zahar, a book supported by the main house. The map might be lacking, but the information should really be useful. Suddenly, though, something catches his eye. A presence much more prominent than the others, standing in the crowd of people. Is it perhaps someone chasing him, or just a coincidence? After getting out of the gates, Turan notes that he will take his time. The Black Eagle expects to be used, but Turan tells him that he feels like walking for a bit right now, so that's what they'll be doing. They continue walking well into the night, but Turan suddenly stops at one point and tells someone that they can come out now, who is none other than Dolph. Dolph is surprised that he knew, but Turan asks why Dolph thought Turan walked all the way here instead of riding the Black Eagle. Dolph notes that he just thought it might be dangerous for a young fellow such as himself to travel alone. That is why he did it. This desert is quite a precarious place, full of dangers. Turan tells him to cut the crap. Dolph is after his mana. Dolph stares at him, and then smiles. Turan still knew all of that, and came here alone. Dolph doesn't know if Turan is brave or reckless. Turan notes that this is why nobles hate it when people call them fallen nobles. Dolph notes that he speaks as if he's looking down on him from the same position. Isn't he actually worse off than him, since his mana is strong, but his physical strength is pathetically weak? He must be of the Guardian primordial bloodline, the kind that only has this defense left, and has lost the power to strengthen its own body. He doesn't know how he accumulated this much power, but it's a waste for a husk like him, so he should hand it over quietly. Turan notes that he lacks physical ability despite his overflowing mana, so he looks like tempting prey. He tells the Black Eagle to fly up and says that it is pretty bad. The one who taught you to say "looks delicious" was Dolph. He begins using stealth magic, and Dolph grins, thinking that it only hides one's appearance without hiding one's presence. This is just a petty spell that knights acting as spies learn. He asks what he plans to do with that absolutely ridiculous spell. He should not even think about running. Breaking stealth magic is extremely easy. However, after a bit, Dolph can't feel his presence at all. No footprints, no smell, no sound. Before he can wonder if this is Zahar's bloodline, he gets struck from behind by a rock. Then he is struck on one side and again on the other, and he begins to be pelted again and again. He summons a bunch of flames around him, thinking that if he lights up the surroundings, he can break the stealth. But where is he? If he just catches him once, it will be over. Suddenly, though, a bunch of fires appear in the sky right above him, and as he screams, they begin descending onto him like a bunch of arrows. As a result, Dolph begins running through them, channeling a bunch of mana into his foot and crashing it into the ground to dispel the other attacks. He continues running, telling Turan to come out, but he is met by only silence. With his heart pounding, and his brain sensing danger, he immediately begins to run. That guy was not from a guardian bloodline. He lied. Fighting a wizard of the Zahar bloodline in the desert at night is basically ending his own life. He begins running at maximum speed, thinking that even if he is a Zahar, unless he has the body-strengthening bloodline like his, he can never catch up to him. However, Turan is up above using the Black Eagle. Turan notes that Dolph is sturdy, though not as much as someone from the guardian bloodline. An ordinary noble would have died long ago. Does he have a magic tool that helps him defend? Dolph puts his palm up, begging for mercy, but Turan just looks at him and notes that he already knows he cannot do such a thing, since he is a mage, after all, and then uses a powerful spell right onto Dolph, ending the fight. Dolph is left in a charred state, with Turan standing right above him. He was sturdier than he anticipated. Is it perhaps because of his Zahar bloodline? If he were a properly trained guardian of the Zahar family, it would have been much harder to break through his current rock slinging. It seems that he needs a stronger means of attack, like some piercing magic that breaks through the defenses. He consumes Dolph's mana, but beyond the mana going into his body, he sees more going into the object he picked up in the sea. It was an item for storing mana too, after all. He wonders how it's used. Does he have to drink it directly? Since it's an item from the Freyans, he should get more verification before attempting such a thing. With that, he continues his journey until he ends up where he wants to be, at the Tomb of the Gods. Earlier, he met with a woman at a tavern who called him rather reckless for running away and traveling alone, wondering if he hasn't run into any bandits or monsters yet. Turan tells her that he's been lucky. More importantly, how does one get into the Tomb of the Gods? According to a book he read, one only requires money. The woman is surprised that he actually learned. He must be from a well-off family, but she told him that he could not go in right now. Some powerful figure showed up about a week ago, and it's been locked down ever since. Even a merchant caravan had to turn back without even getting a glimpse inside. By powerful people, she means those people. Turan knows what she's talking about. The Zahar family. Inside the tomb, one of the soldiers asks where Perga is. Perga tells him that he's right here, and that he should shut up lest those creatures hear him. The soldier comes around and tells him that this is all his fault. If only he hadn't suggested they come here. Perga tells him not to blame him when he's the one who tagged along, asking for a position once he becomes the next house head, and more importantly, he should shut up. Perga himself is quite annoyed at this situation. He remembers his grandfather talking about a hidden underground beneath the Tomb of the Gods. If one can solve its secrets, they might just become the next house head. But to think that the underground place would be a maze with no exit. He searched like crazy every year he came to this place, but he never got anything, so he thought it was just a myth. He cannot believe a place like this is truly hidden. If he can just solve the secret of this place, becoming the house head will be a piece of cake, and the god of Zahar was on his side after all. But that's what he initially thought. If he knew this place was crawling with such beasts, he never would have come here in the first place. He asks the soldier to make some water quickly, as he needs to wet his throat. Suddenly, a voice that speaks in an unknown language rings out throughout the area, and Perga wonders what it is, as he's never heard such a language before. Yet he can understand what it's trying to say, that the night hunter has returned to the desert. Before he entered, Turan went through the market and saw that it was rather annoying. Were they trying to monopolize the whole place themselves? If he loiters around and ends up like househead Cal, it would be rather troublesome. If he meets someone else, he'll have to lie low while they are here. He goes around, and his interest is piqued by something, with the seller telling him that it's saltpeter. It's only found on the southern sea islands. People say that one's lifespan will extend. They grind it into powder and eat it. Turan has heard of it somewhere, and it was in the pyromancer's book he gave up on last time, because he did not have the ingredients to craft this spirit of fire. Considering the powder that guy used, it is worth trying to make, perhaps. He buys some saltpeter, and asks the seller if he had something called sulfur. The man tells him that's the first time he has heard about it. Another seller tells him that sulfur is something one only finds in the volcanic regions, and another told him that it is mostly used for disinfection, and not many people look for it, so it is hard to find in the desert. Turan scratches his head and says that if he knew this, he would have looked for it in Komad too, but he probably needs to go all the way east to find it. A volcano, that is. As he keeps waiting around the tomb, Turan is able to come up with a new attack, one of salt bullets that seems to penetrate pretty well. He can also change their shape mid-flight, so he can increase the piercing power or scatter them. It consumes a tiny bit more mana, but the advantage is that he can reserve his stones. He only has 5 or 6 processed stones left, so he needs to use them sparingly from now on. It is also useful for binding ankles, or obscuring the vision. Maybe he should practice moving through it as if he's swimming. That aside, he really has no idea what those nobles are doing in that tomb. It has already been days since he stayed here. Should he go to another city? However, that's when he thinks he can just sneak in and take a look. If he gets caught, he can just run away. He activates his sneaking magic, but suddenly stops as if he sees two guards carrying someone in a bag, with one of them wondering why he's so damn noisy, and then kicks him in the head. Turan approaches slightly, wondering what is going on. What are they doing that requires a person like that? They descend a bunch of stairs, and Turan can see that they brought the man from the bag over to a large vortex-like thing. The man wonders what it is, but the guards tell him that questions are not permitted. Turan looks at the various men around. They are the kidnappers here, yet they are the ones who are looking rather afraid. One of the men tells the captured man to take the cargo and head inside. Seeing that there is no other choice, the man does so. Turan can see that it was not really his choice. It was mind control magic after all. One of the men wonders if Sir Purga is safe. The other hopes so. They are constantly sending in food and water. The other wonders if they should not contact the main house, but the first asks if he knows what would happen if Purga's rivals heard this news. Turan has heard of this name. Purga is the candidate to be the next house head of Zahar. It seems that he is trapped in there, so that is why they occupy this place for days on end. A strange curiosity wells within him, and he approaches the black pool of magic. It is a bit risky, but it's also an opportunity. If he saves him and makes him indebted to him, he can naturally infiltrate the Zahar family. The result doesn't really matter. He just has to go in. What he wants is in there. He can feel it. With that, he descends into the black pool, being swept up in a sea of darkness. His head clears the moment he enters. It seems he was bewitched by something, which was pretty stupid. What guarantee is there that Purga is someone who repays his debts in the first place? It seems this place takes advantage of greed. Turan, still hidden, sees the man who brought supplies now lying on the ground, the transport, the fall, and the magical entrance taking their toll on him as he crawls, probably begging for help. Purga tells someone to take care of him, as he's noisy, and they have to conserve food anyway. Turan looks at him. So this is Purga Zahar. He kills a person to take their water without an ounce of guilt. It seems that he is not the type to repay a favor. He hears a dark voice, and it is much clearer to him than the others, telling him that he is mistaken. He is not the Night Hunter. In the distant past, the fertile Aneral plains were ruled by the giants. With their enormous bodies, they consumed everything that walked in their wake, eventually turning the land into a desert. The giants required vast amounts of water to live, and when they couldn't withstand the thirst any longer, they enslaved humanity. They drained human blood to quench their thirst, slaughtering thousands each day. But one moonless night, beneath the sky of absolute darkness, that is when the Night Hunter of the Thrayans arrived, and he slew every single giant, saving humanity from their sure extinction. In gratitude, the liberated people offered him the 3 most beautiful maidens in the land as brides. The 3 children born from those unions inherited amazing power. One could conceal his body, one could command shadows, another could create poison. After the Night Hunter ascended to another plane, the brothers fought over who ruled the desert. The eldest, who could conceal his body, left because he did not wish to fight his brothers, but the second brother, the master of the shadows, and the third, the master of poison, waged a brutal war against one another. The desert fell into turmoil, and countless people were driven to despair once again. However, in the end, the eldest returned, defeated both of his younger brothers, and claimed dominion over the entire desert. That was the ancestor of Zahar. Now Turan wonders why he is hearing the name of that god. Is this perhaps connected to the Zahar nobles who entered before him? Technically, he is a distant descendant as well. Suddenly he hears footsteps and can sense something there with his mana. He follows after the creature and peeks at it, seeing that it looks somewhat human, although brutally changed. Turan thinks that it seems rather unpleasant, but suddenly the creature turns its head directly to him, and before he can wonder if it really spotted him, it charges forth along with some others and swipes at him. Turan gets out of the way and uses fire magic to stop them before retreating. He wonders how he was detected, to think that they could see through Zahar's stealth too. Fortunately, its detection range seems to be rather narrow, so he picks up a stone, as the first strike is his. He whips the stone with his slingshot, taking out the first creature, but the other ones do not even react when it dies. When they leave, Turan slowly approaches the defeated creature, and he tries to absorb the magic from it, but he can't seem to do so, even if it is dead. This means that it is a magical creature. The amount of mana he absorbed is small. With physical abilities like that, it should have contained a lot more mana. On top of that, the holy relic did not even react. What is this creature's true identity? The voice repeats again that he is not the Night Hunter, and Turan thinks it is utterly tiresome. Sensing steps behind him, Turan immediately makes his way forward, not wanting to be detected just yet. Purga and his people eventually find the body. One of them wonders if they passed through here before. but they can't really know. Their sense of direction had been shot for a while now. However, Purga can sense it. A rat is in here. It cannot be a rescue party because if it were, they would have noticed by now. Making a commotion in a place like this would easily stand out too. He calls out a man by the name of Galthan and tells him to set traps nearby, as they will have to catch the rat. He also tells someone named Imelda to keep the lights on so they can see in the surroundings. They should leave the rat for now, though it's probably just some knight who got lucky and survived earlier. They should let him run around for a bit, as they will use him as bait for the creatures. Turan naturally heard all of this, as he was just nearby. 3 days later, Turan and Purga's group found themselves in the bizarre situation of coexisting within the pitch-black labyrinth. Fortunately, the traps laid by the barrier-bearer bloodline were extremely visible to Turan through the eyes of the holy relic, posing no real obstacle. In fact, thanks to the darkness, Purga's group often ended up repeatedly triggering their own traps, unlike Turan, who could gauge his direction in the dark. The power of the holy relic allowed him to establish several locations as bases, allowing him to slowly expand his search range. Occasionally, a particular path would be swarming with an overwhelming number of strange creatures, making it quite impossible to push through without killing some at a time. At times like those, he borrowed the strength of Purga's group, making them fight, although it meant giving up the chance to absorb their mana. Turan did not mind, because the creatures yielded so little mana that it was barely worth the effort. After a particularly grueling fight, one of the members of the group notes that, since someone keeps sending them their way, they are starting to build up quite a stockpile of bodies. Purga tells him that someone is sending them their way, assuming the rat is still alive. One of them laughs, noting that if he had known this would happen, he would have kept them alive instead of letting them die. As it is unsettling not having anyone waiting for them. Turan watches this, and finds it utterly predictable. Suddenly, the voice is heard again, and Purga immediately tells them to dim the lights. Turan finds this perfect. While they make noise and act as bait, he will check out the deeper parts. Eventually, he ends up at a pretty large door. It probably was made for the giants, but could this be the exit? Suddenly, the eye in the middle of the door opens up, revealing a true eye, one made of marble but still real. The eye gazes at Turan, calling him the hunter-pursuer, and tells him the conditions are not met. However, upon gazing at the relic on his belt, the Wave Rider and Mimic, the conditions are officially met. So would he like to enter? Turan wonders what it meant by Wave Rider and Mimic. Could they be the names of the bloodlines that have not manifested in him just yet? If two bloodlines are combined, that would mean he has the blood of a great house. However, he sees that the door's gaze is not directed at him, but at the relic. It's recognizing the owner of the holy relic's abilities rather than the bloodline. Then it is using those abilities together with his bloodline to make its judgment. He asks, what are Wave Rider and Mimic? What is this door? He wishes to know about these things. With the information requested, the door sees no issues, so it is accepted. The Wave Rider is the first type: underwater respiration, underwater physical enhancement, and fluid manipulation. Mimic is another type: flow detection, absorption, and mimesis. Turan doesn't feel like he's gained the ability to breathe underwater or manipulate fluids. Does it only use them for identification? He asks the door who it is, and it only says that it is the spirit of the door. Turan guesses that it's like some sort of librarian, just far more rigid and inhuman. He asks what this labyrinth is about. He wishes to know its purpose and how to escape. The door tells him that the labyrinth of the Nightcrawler is where one who slays the chief while possessing the correct 4 types becomes the Night Hunter. Turan wonders what that even means. Can he become a god as well? The door wishes to explain further, telling him that if he slays the chief, the escape route will open, but it suddenly begins spouting out error after error, because now it senses Hunter, Pursuer, Wave Rider, and even Mimic. 2 types of errors. Shadow Alchemist absent. There are 4 types fulfilled. That does not match the Wave Rider type. The labyrinth opening door. It cannot be closed in the first place. Internal personnel remaining. Unauthorized personnel have entered, inquiring with the creator, but the creator is absent. Since that is so, the autonomous judgment has been initiated, so it will now issue the deployment of the labyrinth chief. Turan can feel something from inside, and the door slowly opens, revealing a more gigantic beast, one much larger than the other ones, but similar in skin tone and build. The creature seems to be the one who said that he is not a night hunter, and also now tells him that fakes must die. Turan immediately attacks with his slingshot, and then uses both fire and electricity to overwhelm the creature, but there is barely any sort of damage left on it, perhaps none at all, as it says that it tickles. Seeing this, Turan bolts away, knowing he cannot win a one-on-one. The creature naturally begins running after him, and its giant steps catch the attention of the other creatures, which begin charging at Turan. He weaves through them left and right and upwards, managing to get out of the large circle they formed when it was pretty close. Suddenly, one approaches from the front, and Turan can only hold his shield up to defend himself, but it is surprising to see that it was breached. Turan takes out the creature. He thinks about it. The labyrinth of the Night Hunter, a place that creates gods. But who built it and why? Suddenly, the chief steps right beside him and jumps up, aiming to crush him, but Turan dodges just in time and continues running away. At that point, he knows one thing for sure. This won't end until he kills this thing, so they should fight together a bit, since they are cousins and all, as he sees Purga fighting his own share of creatures. After they are done, Purga asks if they are all right, and one of them agrees for now, but there is no end to them, it seems. Suddenly, one of them hears something strange, the continued ramblings of the Night Hunter, calling them the children's enemy, and saying that they should all be slain. The knights are confused as the chief comes into view, running towards them, but Purga tells them that's not what's important, and they should not stand around blankly. Two of them are killed instantly. Seeing Ubo and Galthan die, Purga knows there is no other option but to strike and hopefully defeat this thing. Another charges in, managing to penetrate the chief's skin only lightly before he gets sent flying with a mighty, deadly punch. Another tries to unleash a fire spell, but the chief simply crushes him before taking out two others with a swipe of its hand, and then swiping its claws upwards, taking out three more while the other smaller creatures charge forth. Purga can't believe the situation. The small fry are creating a commotion too, drawing even more of them. At this rate, they will be wiped out. He also sees someone fighting in the distance. It's probably the rat who is fighting to survive, but if he draws the attention of the small fry, then they can probably win. One of them, a larger, more confident man, charges forth with his cleaver, crashing it into the chief, making it actually stumble. He laughs like an idiot, thinking that he smashed the thing's shin, but the chief just kicks him away and kills him on the spot. With this, Purga knows that it's over. All his supporters are dead. Even if he survives this, his political career is done. All because of this bastard. Everything he has ever built is gone. He charges in at the chief in a fit of rage, jumping away from its swiping hand and swinging around its hand with his weapon before channeling it with mighty power and throwing it right into the chief's chest with everything he has. He thinks that he did it, as that was a solid hit. The chief is only mildly annoyed, and because of his precarious position in the air, Purga cannot dodge the next strike as one of the chief's fingers goes through him. He wonders what the hell is going on. Where did it all go wrong? However, he can hear the chief asking where the fake is, and that he should reveal himself. He wonders for a second. It is saying that while looking in Turan's direction, it killed every single one of his comrades, so why is it still not satisfied? He understands pretty quickly what it was. The rat was using them as bait, not the other way around. Turan charges in with the cleaver he got from the guy who died, and the chief immediately recognizes him. It is glad to have found the fake Night Hunter. Turan crashes the cleaver into the chief's thick neck, but it seems to do nothing. A single blow will not kill him after all. He is smashed roughly into the ground. He is still able to survive thanks to the shield, but it's pretty clear that will not work anymore. Turan knows he lacks firepower more than anything. It is unpleasant, but he has to try this. The chief charges in at the presumed imposter, but Turan dodges under his strike and uses the cleaver with mighty power to put an actual deep cut into the chief's hand. The chief screams that it hurts, and that Turan is a monster who killed all of his children. Turan jumps away from his next attack, and using his newfound power, crashes the cleaver into his neck once again, putting it to the ground. Everyone else is dead or dying, so Turan finishes the fight with amazing power as he completely decapitates the chief. The chief's head falls, and shortly afterward Turan thinks that if it wasn't for the bloodline power he got from Dolph, this would have been a lot harder. Now he understands how this sacred relic works. He does not know about the Wave Rider, but the mimic power is definitely active. Having to digest liquids is a bit unpleasant, and the power is slowly fading as well, so it will probably disappear in about 30 minutes or so. He goes to Purga shortly afterwards, seeing that he has a punctured lung and another wound near the heart. There is no surviving this, even with healing magic. Purga looks at him and begs to be saved, but Turan apologizes, as this is beyond his capabilities. He just watches him die slowly. Turan looks at the various bodies of the creatures around him, and the end of Purga's cohort. He was a cruel man, who treated the lives of commoners and knights as worthless, but he was also someone who fought to the end against the secret of this labyrinth. He will remember him. That is all he can do for him now. After collecting mana from everyone, Turan can see that a lot of different mana is gathered in the relic, and he wonders what it would be like to use multiple bloodlines at the same time. He admits he is pretty curious about it, but it is better to save it for later. He's at least twice as strong as when he entered the labyrinth anyway. Perhaps it's a level of power that an ordinary noble would take 100 years to accumulate. If he wants to avoid the pursuit of the Zahars, he thinks it is best to abandon the magic tools scattered about. He also needs to erase all of his traces, so he will use tracking magic to find and erase them. Since he has already killed the labyrinth chief, he goes to the door and sees it is no longer active. He decides to push it open, revealing another portal, presumably out of this place, and what seems to be a throne room with a book right next to it. Turan naturally is drawn to the book and sees that it is titled, Experiments to Replicate the Night Hunter's Ascension Process. He also sees that it has something to do with a class change too. The first page itself tells him that a night hunter is basically a hunter plus a stalker, plus a shadow, plus an alchemist. The condition is to clear the labyrinth of evil, but even the book wondered, must it be cleared solo, or can it be a party? It opens when a compatible target is detected, and functions to lure only compatible targets inside. Turan now understands. The Night Hunter was a combination of hunter, stalker, shadow, and alchemist, that the condition for ascension was clearing the labyrinth of evil, and that the labyrinth has a function that lures compatible targets. That's why he felt such a strong urge to enter back then. Here, he also sees information about the monster, the rotten jaw. The materials are giant's blood and flesh, with the giant jaw using a giant queen as the material. The power source is mana, and the longevity issue is resolved through hibernation. The method to replicate acidic blood is also written. The creatures were made from the flesh of giants. He sees a section on an Earth Mother Goddess experiment and other things, like the previous experiments failing. Although everything else is incomprehensible, one thing is certain. The creator's goal was to produce another Night Hunter, and because of the sacred relic he carried, he mistook him for a candidate who possessed all 4 bloodlines. Shadow and alchemist bloodlines have already gone extinct. The Zahars wiped them out. Even the arsonist Orville said that God revealed a method to him to obtain a bloodline artificially. Is it really possible to permanently acquire one? There are relics capable of absorbing and utilizing bloodline powers, but he won't find answers by thinking about it now. He needs to leave before the whirlpool disappears. He ends up right outside of the tomb. Right next to him, the hawk immediately arrives, writing into the sand that it was extremely worried for him, and it was scared too. He pets it on the head, apologizing, and then puts his bag more securely on his shoulder before flying away. After killing one of the candidates for the next Zahar leader, and over 10 other nobles, the entire desert must be in quite a panic. It is only a matter of time before they point to a culprit. He will need to leave the desert for a few months at least, until things cool down. After that, he will resume searching for traces of his mother. But first, they will be heading the other way. They arrive in the pretty cold place, the Gray Zone, the place where Arabian and Zahar wage their wars. On his way, he sees a convoy, and he wonders what is going on. It seems like they are running away from something. He goes to the gray city of Kalamath, and the guards there see him, a little surprised, wondering what kind of bird that is on his shoulder, and why he has those clothes. The guards immediately bow down, as he definitely must be someone from a great noble family. Turan knows they realize he is a mage pretty early. Next time, he will have to buy simpler clothes. He explains that he is just a traveler. Could he request lodging for the night from this city's lord? The guard knows that that might be an issue, as Kalamath no longer has a lord. He died recently during an attack by the Dark Elves from the west, and currently, there is not a single noble or knight ruling this city. Turan thinks that complicates things somewhat, but suddenly one of the guards lands on his knees and begins begging him to become the ruler of this city. Turan scratches the back of his head as he cannot tie himself down to a place like this in the middle of nowhere, but seeing the situation and simply ignoring it isn't something he would allow either. He notes that he wishes to hear the story first and find out what happened. The head guard leads him inside and explains that this started 3 weeks ago. Monster hunters were found dead on the road. Even their blades were sliced in half with a single clean blow. This was no ordinary beast. It's only a day's journey from here, so they sent 2 knights. But even after 3 days, they didn't return. Faced with that, the city lord's brother and son, along with 10 more knights, set out, yet none of them returned either. Turan wonders what happened. Did the lord himself go? The head guard confirms as such, but only 1 knight returned. He was completely broken in spirit, and before he died from some kind of ailment, he uttered only a few words. Spirit of death. The city's scholars say that those who control spirits are the Dark Elves. Soon, the Dark Elves will come to devour everyone. That is why everyone is fleeing the city. Turan says, "What about the neighboring cities? Did nobody come to help them?" The head guard tells him, with his head bowed, that they sent many messengers, but they were all turned away. They said that in a situation like this, they could not spare their troops for a worthless cause. Turan guesses they are afraid of being attacked as well. It's a logical conclusion to come to. He gets up, understanding the situation, but he thinks this is too big for him to handle. The head guard bows his head again and says that the sheep in the valley need a shepherd, so Turan should have mercy on them. Turan is reminded of what his mother said, that the nobles are shepherds, and that the commoners are sheep. He asks if this is a common comparison around these parts, and the head guard confirms as such. Everyone in the gray zone talks like this. The nobles are the shepherds, the knights are the sheepdogs, and the commoners are sheep. The sheep follow the dogs, while the dogs obey the shepherds and protect the flock. Turan realizes that his mother was born here, or at least lived in this region for quite some time. He has never heard this expression in Hazarul, or in the deserts. He pulls out a drawing of her, noting that her name is Bijai. About 20 years ago, she must have been 18, or in her early 20s. The head guard apologizes, saying that he does not remember her, but if he wishes, they can distribute this portrait throughout the entire city. The head guard gives Turan a knowing look, and Turan understands what he means. If he wants to find his mother, he needs to prevent the city from being destroyed. He does not want to become the lord of the city, as he said previously, but he can become its protector. He will stay here for a while, and protect the city until the threat from the west is gone, or someone worthy of ruling appears. With this, the guards gather everyone in the middle of the town, announcing that a savior has arrived in their city. They are saved. He is a noble descendant of the gods, so they shall fear no more. Naturally, there is dissent among the people, because on the surface, that man doesn't seem to be any different from them. He is handsome like the gods, but monsters don't run away just because someone is handsome, right? Maybe they'll charge even faster. Turan sees it for what it is. It's not mockery, it's just plain fear. They just do not want to get their hopes up only to be disappointed once again, as they have 3 times already. Back then, he thought that was just a pointless display of power, the lightning display that the house had put on, but now he understands why it's important. For the sheep to feel at ease, they need to see the power with their own eyes. He decides to do a little test. Since there are no mages in this city, as long as he puts on a good show, it should be enough. He compresses a ball of fire to the absolute limit and lowers its temperature. With that, he sends it flying. The fireball flies into the clouds before bursting into a beautiful blaze. Turan expands the spell's range as much as possible, lighting up the entire mountainside. Naturally, everyone is amazed by this, and the descent immediately falters, with everyone claiming that they are now saved and that they shall praise the protector. Turan thinks that's enough, but once he gets inside the office, he changes his opinion. There are still many problems. A mountain's worth, at least. The head guards bicker over which supplies they need. One says that people are freezing to death, but another wonders what good firewood is without food. Everyone is going to starve at this rate. Turan notes that if he doesn't interrupt, this meeting will go on for at least 2 days, so he explains that he will be handling the food shortage. One of them asks if he has a plan, and Turan explains that he will herd the animals of this region to the city. First, they will feed the people meat soup, then they shall salt the leftovers to last through the winter. One of them notes that using the power granted by the gods themselves for such a mundane task is dishonorable. They cannot allow something like this. Turan tells him that the nobles of the north also strike their fields with lightning after the harvest to make the soil fertile, so what he is doing is no different. Using his hawk's vision, he looks down from above and sees a large number of animals. He takes control of them and directs them toward the city. When they reach the walls, they will stand still. What he is doing now is a bit more work than herding a flock, but he is used to it. Eventually, all of the animals gather at the gates, like they want to enter or something. One of them wonders why the former lord did not do something like this, but another tells him that their former lord was not a powerful mage like Turan. With that, they begin to butcher the animals and distribute the meat, hanging some of it to dry as well. Turan moves to the next step, telling them to open up the main building, as those who have lost their homes in the attacks, or for any other reason, may stay there. The head guard wonders where he is going to stay if that's the case, but Turan tells him that the town hall quarters are enough. There is a bed there, and that's all he needs. Naturally, the people are extremely touched that their shepherd has taken pity on his sheep like this. Turan doesn't really care for that kind of idolatry. The sooner the city returns to normal, the faster he can get clues about his mother. At Bagan Castle, news spreads of how Turan has presented himself not as lord of the city, but as its protector. He has also started sending caravans to trade with neighboring villages. One of the nobles wonders how old he is, with another claiming that he should be about 20. At Balan Castle, they are informed that he cast a spell that covered the sky above the city in flames. Without a doubt, he is an extremely powerful mage. A noble there thinks that if someone so young possesses such power, either he had absurdly good luck, or he was trained from a young age by some great family. This news reaches Heron Castle as well. A noble there notes that Turan happened to appear alongside the Arabian army and took possession of an abandoned city that smells like trouble. His name is Turan Zahar, though. Could he be a prodigy sent by the Zahars? One of the guards wonders if they should contact them, but the noble tells him no. It would be disrespectful to act as if they know what their superiors are planning. Besides, what if he is wrong? For now, they will accept the situation, or at least pretend to, and leave him be. With this, the rulers of the Grey Zone end up accepting Turan as the protector of Kalamath, without him even knowing about it. At one point, Turan looks at the picture of his mother, noting that this Grey Zone spans 8 cities and over 100 villages. What are the chances of finding his mother in a place of this size? The head guard arrives to see Turan, who asks whether any more information has come in. The head guard apologizes for the false hopes this past week, but this time it's different. The information comes from a wanderer named Egon. The head guard says that about 18 years ago, a woman identical to the one in the portrait had spent a night at his old inn. Turan believes that the time frame of 18 to 19 years ago matches perfectly. Egon is brought before Turan and explains that if it weren't for the food and shelter Turan gave him, he would have surely died like a dog on the streets. Turan is glad that did not happen. Turan asks Egon to tell him everything he remembers about the woman in the portrait. Egon explains that it was before he lost everything, back when he was still running his old inn. At the time, Kalamath was in utter chaos because of the war between the Arabians and the Zahars. Nobody knew which family would suddenly show up, so everyone lived in fear. It was during that time period that a young woman showed up at his inn and spent the night. She must have been about 20 years old, and she looked visibly pregnant. Her belly was showing quite a bit. She was a woman traveling alone, but she also had a beautiful, well-groomed horse, which is why he never forgot her. On top of that, she seemed to be nervous, as if she were running away from someone. He kept wondering what kind of bastard would abandon a woman that beautiful, especially when she was so pregnant. Turan wonders why he thought she had been abandoned, but Egon tells him that he did overhear her during her meal. She caressed her belly and muttered to herself, begging her son not to grow up to be like his father. Turan is shocked, as it seems he has finally found real information, an actual lead on his mother. Egon continues, noting that afterward she asked which way led west, but she did not seem to recognize any of the local place names, so she was not from around here. Now that he thinks about it, the horse did not look local either. Its coat was a shimmering gold from head to hoof. Anyone could tell from a mile away that it was a magnificent purebred. He even made sure to lock the stable that night. Turan takes in all of this information, and then returns to his room. It is still far too early to jump to any conclusions, but it is likely that the woman Egon saw was his mother. But what could she have meant by asking him not to grow up to be like his father? The hawk writes in a tray of sand, asking Turan if it hurts. He says it doesn't. He just has quite a few things on his mind. The hawk writes that he gets sad whenever he talks about BJ. Turan wonders whether she notices everything because their souls are linked. That's right, he was talking about his mother. Turan then wonders about the hawk. Does she remember her own mother? She shakes her head, indicating that she does not have one. Turan pats her on the head, noting that they are alike then. He has been without his mother for quite some time too. Hearing him say this and seeing the look on his face, the hawk comes to a decision. Her name will be BJ. Turan is confused, so the hawk reiterates that she will be BJ because he said BJ isn't here. Turan lets out a fond sigh. She wants to replace his mother? Well, it's not that simple. A name needs to be chosen carefully too. BJ points out that she's thought about it a lot. She is now BJ. Turan understands that if that's what she really wants, then that will be her name. From this day forth, she'll be called BJ, and he will continue to count on her. Since they have rested enough, they should go on patrol. He exits the room through the window with BJ's help. Everyone cheers as they see them from below, calling him the protector and lord of Kalamath, one of them even noting that he should protect their city forever. Turan thinks that's a bit of a pain since he's planning to leave one day, and that's exactly why he never wanted to put down roots anywhere, because people would start to depend on him. As BJ continues to fly swiftly, Turan tries to sense his surroundings, but he does not find any dark elves. Did they leave? It might have been better if they were still there. He could simply defeat them and be done with it. But if they relocated, they could suddenly return at any time. He senses a large amount of mana coming from one spot. Recognizing it as a mage's mana, he realizes it is at least twice as large as his own. Suddenly that mana accelerates, probably because the mage sensed him from a distance. He immediately tells BJ to fly south, but then stops her when he recognizes that way of riding the wind. It is none other than Mesa. Recognizing each other, they both land. Mesa notes that it has been about 3 or 4 months since they last saw each other, and that Turan has changed quite a bit in that time. Turan asks how he has changed, and Mesa tells him that he now looks more like a real adult. BJ asks who she is, and Turan introduces Mesa as a great friend of his. He also introduces BJ as part of his family. Mesa is impressed. She's a magical beast with a spiritual bond. She can even write. That's pretty impressive. Turan confirms this and explains that they met during his journeys, and that BJ was the one who chose him. Mesa finds it lovely. She wishes she could find a companion like that too. But what is he doing around here? Traveling through this region is dangerous. Turan explains everything that happened, and Mesa guesses that perhaps this is the Arabian army's fault as well. When the Arabian army destroyed the underground kingdom, a necromancer managed to escape, so he is probably the one responsible for all this. He fled east to build up his army of undead. It is quite likely that he is hiding in the land of the blind dwarves high in the mountains. Turan wonders if she is talking about the dwarves from legend, as he looks up at the mountain, and Mesa confirms it. According to legend, their kingdom lies so deep within the mountains that not even the gods could wipe them out. But it is a relief that he did not head farther east. For various reasons, the Dark Elves cannot enter the Gray Zone either. Turan guesses it is because of the Zahars, and Mesa confirms it. Still, Mesa must depart because she has been away for too long. She says that whenever they get the chance, she wants to hear more about his journey. As she leaves, BJ writes on the ground that Mesa is compatible with her too. Turan pauses and asks what she means. If Mesa had met BJ first, would BJ have chosen her? BJ immediately flaps her wings in panic and writes that Mesa has no chance because Turan makes her happy. Turan smiles and thinks that it deserves some thought. Why would BJ say that only he and Mesa are compatible with her? The city seems to be returning to its usual state, with people no longer afraid to walk through the streets. Eventually, Turan receives several noble visitors. The head guard reports that there are quite a few of them, representatives from Vegan, Aaron, and even Labana, forming a joint delegation from all the neighboring cities. One of the representatives bows his head, noting that it is a pleasure to meet the Lord of Kalamath, and that they hope he will receive them as guests. Turan agrees, but first, he wishes to know why they have come to see him, and asks who among them will explain. The man from before steps up, noting that they have come to propose a marriage alliance between their 7 families and the Lord of Kalamath. They intend to offer the daughters of their houses as his concubines. They are quite beautiful and well-educated, and they will surely help his family prosper and grow. Turan understands. They heard that the threat from the west is gone, so now they want a piece of the pie before anyone else. They want to gain control of Kalamath. Another representative speaks out, noting that to rule a territory one must have loyal knights. Uniting their lineages would strengthen that alliance. Turan appreciates the proposal, but he must decline. Instead, he has a counter-proposal. They should find the whereabouts of a woman who traveled through the Gray Zone about 20 years ago. The family that brings the most valuable information will receive the right to rule this city. Everyone is confused, and the main representative wonders why he would hand over an entire city for the sake of a single woman. Turan notes that there is one more condition. Whoever takes over Kalamath must swear in the name of the gods of Freya to protect its inhabitants with absolute sincerity. If they break this oath, they will immediately forfeit the right to rule. One of them wonders why he insists so much on this. He has already done far more than anyone would ever expect for the residents here. Turan wonders the same thing. He's just a shepherd of the valley, someone who protects the sheepdogs and sheep from the wolves of this cruel world. He only wants to be a good shepherd. Suddenly, he senses the mana of an incredibly strong knight. He wonders, who could it be? Did they enter the town hall without even announcing themselves? The intruder must have slipped by undetected, so Turan guesses that it is some kind of enemy. Turan makes his way straight toward the intruder, but is surprised to see that it is none other than Kiorn. Kiorn does not look particularly surprised to see him, and taps him on the shoulder. Kiorn says that he came by to check, but cannot believe it really is Turan. He clears his throat and bows a little, asking Turan to forgive his rudeness, since Turan is the Lord of Kalamath after all. Turan tells him not to call him that, as he knows damn well he doesn't like it. Kiorn can't help but laugh a bit. He's grown so much, yet he has not changed a bit. They go inside, and after Turan hands Kiorn some tea, Turan notes that he never expected to run into Kiorn in this place. He must have taken quite a detour to get here. Kiorn notes that he didn't come here just for the trip. He heard about the war, so he applied to join the subjugation force, having fought Dark Elves a few times already. Turan understands that Kiorn came as an Arabian knight with the subjugation force, but he wonders whether Kiorn told the Arabians about Turan's bloodline. Kiorn confirms that he did not, and tells Turan to rest assured. Kiorn adds that Turan did not seem to want to live as a Zahar noble anyway, then asks whether he was being too nosy. Turan does not smell any lies, so Kiorn is telling the truth. Turan admits that he is right. Kiorn clarifies that he did not come as an Arabian messenger, but to be precise, as Mesa's messenger. Turan asks if they are close, but Kiorn says he does not think so. They have met only a few times. Kiorn says that somehow, He ended up with a title he does not even deserve. Turan wonders if he means Hero Kiorn, and Kiorn naturally gets flustered, wondering if he saw that awful play. Turan nods his head, and Kiorn brushes it off, noting that they can talk about that later. First, he would like to deliver Mesa's proposal. It's about a dark elf necromancer. There's been a setback in subjugating the self-proclaimed necromancer king, so she wishes for his help. Turan narrows his eyes. The title of king was used by ancient rulers. Is that person really strong enough to deserve such a title? Turan had heard that the necromancer king was utterly defeated and fled. Kiorn explains that he's become quite troublesome as of late. They found his lair and breached it, but they took devastating losses. 8 nobles and over 200 knights were killed. Turan wonders how that happened, and Kiorn tells him that a massive number of mysterious artifacts had been placed throughout the dwarves' lair. Every single one of them was lethal. Turan wonders whether some noble family could have allied with another race. He also voices his suspicion, wondering if it is the Zahar family. Kiorn notes that Mesa does not believe so. She thinks they excavated and used ancient dwarven relics, but she does not know the details. Turan understands, but there is one glaring issue. Does Kiorn happen to know who Talus Zahar is? Kiorn says that he does not know much about him, only that Talus is not the family head but the second in command of the Zahar family. Turan agrees. Talus is practically the ruler of the family. The problem is that Turan's face reminds some people of Talus. Someone in the subjugation force who knows Talus will surely find the resemblance strange. Kiorn tells him not to worry. During the war, every noble of the Zahars wore a mask. He can rest assured that almost no one in Arabia knows what Talus looks like. More importantly, could that second in command of the Zahar family be Turan's father? Turan isn't exactly sure and is still looking for clues. He then wonders whether Mesa could request additional support from Arabia. If the Arabian family head came personally, things would end quite easily. Kiorn tells him there are 2 problems with this. Given the lair's layout, weak mages would only increase casualties, and Mesa's position makes it difficult for her to ask for support from the main family. Turan understands. Even the successor cannot do whatever she wants, it seems. Kiorn pulls out an infinite pouch, a holy relic offered as a reward from Arabia. Turan grabs it and asks if it's the kind he's thinking of, with Kiorn agreeing that, though it's only the lowest grade, it can hold items up to 1,000 times its own size, and its bearer will not feel their weight. Turan puts his flask in it, and finds it quite useful. With this, he won't even need to carry a backpack when he travels. Turan wonders whether they can subjugate that necromancer with his help, and Kiorn tells him that Mesa believes they can. Turan understands. He doesn't want Mesa to get hurt either. Besides, he does have a debt to pay for the thought acceleration magic she taught him earlier. Turan goes to the temporary holdout near the mountain and meets with Mesa, who guesses that since he's here, he will join them, right? Turan confirms as such, but more importantly, he can feel that she is injured. She says it's nothing serious, and she will not have her injuries treated because there are many others in worse shape than she is. Their healing mana is limited, and she would rather save it. Since Kiorn has explained everything, they should move out. She wants to strike before the enemy recovers its strength. Turan wonders whether it would be wiser to treat her injuries first, but Mesa says she's fine. A minor injury like this barely registers to her anyway. Suddenly, though, several people stop them, including the vice commander of the Arabian subjugation force, Kadram Arabian. He does not like that Mesa brought a stranger at a time like this, but Mesa vouches for him. He is her friend and an ally of her house. He's a skilled warrior she can trust. Kadram acknowledges that Turan may be strong, but says that his background is the issue. Could he show them his bloodline ability? After all, he could just be another Zahar pest in disguise. Turan looks at him for a moment and says that if Kadram insists, he will show them his bloodline ability. Surprising Mesa and Kiorn, he flicks his finger upward, and suddenly a whip-like barrier appears. He grabs a stick and throws it into the barrier, immediately causing it to burst into flames. He asks if this is enough. Some members of the subjugation force believe a barrier mage will not be much help in battle, while others think that with that much mana, he should be able to pull his weight even without a bloodline ability. Turan chooses the ability carefully. It poses no threat, yet it is still useful to have on the battlefield. Practicing barrier magic with the relic seems to have paid off. Mesa looks at Turan a bit suspiciously and asks if anyone is still unsatisfied. No one responds. She tells the others to go on ahead, as she and Turan have something else to discuss. Kiorn also leaves for his post. Mesa immediately whips the wind around them, creating a barrier that sound cannot penetrate. Turan is impressed by this use of wind magic, and Mesa wonders, how did he use a barrier mage's bloodline ability earlier? Did he actually manage to learn it? Turan says it was just a magical tool, though it has too many restrictions to use freely. Mesa tells him that he should have told her beforehand if he was going to do something like that. They could have coordinated. Turan explains that he was not sure he would need to use it if they accepted him without question. He would not have used it. but seeing that their attitude was unyielding, they would not have let him join if he did not show a bloodline ability. Mesa scoffs and admits that she was quite startled. She thought he had left her far behind. Turan tells her not to get too comfortable though. After a bit of banter, they gather everyone and enter the mountain through a narrow crack. The space is narrow, and the knights are pretty wary. They eventually find a spot where a battle took place, with blood but no corpses to be found. They guess the corpses must have been taken to turn them into undead, or perhaps to be eaten. Using his mana to sense his surroundings, Turan detects a large number of creatures deeper inside the mountain, which is quite unusual. They look like the monsters from that underground labyrinth, but the flames on their heads burn wildly. He also sees about 20 dark elves. The two with glowing brands must be the necromancers. Then Mesa stops everyone when she senses the enemies approaching. Everyone prepares for battle, and suddenly hidden doors open in the walls on both sides. From them, beasts with ranged weapons appear, encircling the entire group and immediately gaining the upper hand. Thank you for watching. See you next time.